Order. This is a meeting for April 12, 2011, a regular scheduled meeting of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly. First item of business is a roll call. Please do the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Ms. Osiander. Here. Mr. Gutierrez.
Here.
Mr. Honeman.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Starr.
Here.
Mr. Flynn.
Present.
Mr. Trainee.
Here.
Ms. Johnston. Here. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored that the people of Midtown want me to stay here.
Mr. Birch. Mr. Birch.
Here.
Ms. Drummond is excused. Leave.
No, she's in doing a news interview out there with Channel 11. She's here.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item in business is Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, would you lead us in the pledge, please, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's not mine. Not in here. It missed it on mine. Whatever. Item 4A is minutes of previous meetings. We have one set of meetings. This is the meeting of March 8, 2011. I'll need a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve.
If there's any comments, ask unanimous consent. Is there any objection to that? Not seeing any. Those minutes are approved. Madam Clerk is submitted to the Assembly. Mr. Mayor, we're down to item 5, Mayor's report, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item today. I think you may have seen the news yesterday, but and on your agenda and on the addendum, we are moving forward with a strategy regarding homeless camps that we hope to start implementing very quickly, hopefully with the approval of the Assembly on the item that's to be introduced tonight. And essentially, we will be, wherever possible, giving the 3 days notice plus storage of the personal items of people in the camp, which was kind of the one sticking point. Could we actually store goods? Who would be responsible? And we're working out the final details of that. So I think we'll be able to move forward this year and make a big dent in the problem. So looking forward to your support.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has that gone to ACLU yet to get their comments on it?
Well, it actually complies with what they had suggested and that the court agreed was the proper way. So it's following those guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions from the Assembly for the Mayor? Thank you, sir. Next item is Assembly Chair's report. There is none. Committee reports. Debbie? Mike?
No, sir.
Paul?
Public Safety Committee has been postponed to Wednesday the 20th. It was originally scheduled for tomorrow. So Wednesday the 20th at the Fire Training Center, thanks to Chief Hall and his staff. And expect to have some pretty good public participation. We're going over non-consent tows, the ones from the parking lot areas who have tow operators, and public hopefully will turn out in numbers to give us some information, as well as potentially another hot button item coming up.
They'll probably send you tonight.
Yes, sir.
Ernie, sir.
No report.
Bill?
Yeah, Budget and Finance. Just want to remind everyone this Friday there's a committee meeting of the whole, the entire body, for review of the first quarter budget amendments as presented by the administration. So if we can attend that on Friday, that'll be a good time to start to talk about that. And I'll also have some other items to pull forward for the first public hearing of the budget adjustments scheduled for the 19th. So fair warning that that's coming on to us pretty fast.
Thank you, sir. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to work with the administration to schedule the Port Committee to reconvene later this month to see what progress the joint project oversight team has made since being formed several months ago, and then at that point we'll discuss the future of that committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jennifer?
I just wanted to make sure everybody got the email from me from the Mayor's Energy Task Force, and it's a good sort of comparison of what the Alaska Energy Authority has for comments as far as what we're looking at energy, and then the other is from Mark Foster, and he compares the different types of energy and their costs. Thank you.
Good, thank you, ma'am. Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Friday, there's finally an audit committee meeting from 10 to 11:30, and the two subjects are, number one is the police and fire retirement audit, and the second one is the police payroll audit. I'm looking forward to being done with both of these subjects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris?
I'll be traveling to Juneau tomorrow with regard to the legislative committee and returning on Thursday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I got a note today that I think they said $14,885,000 is Anchorage's share of revenue sharing. So take a big suitcase down with you, will you? Would appreciate it. Next item of business, addendum to the agenda. Let me go over it with you. If I get a motion to incorporate the addendum.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The first item is on item 9A2, Resolution AR 2011-109, a resolution of the municipality of the Anchorage Assembly honoring and remembering former municipal attorney William Bill Green. Item 9B2 under Resolutions for Action, Resolution AR 2011-105, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly in opposition to lowering the legal age for consumption of alcohol and tobacco products under House Bill 210. Item 9B3, Resolution AR 2011-116, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly acknowledging the importance of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System TAPS to Anchorage and the Energy Task Force resolution dated April 7, 2011. Item 9C1, under bid awards, the same memorandum AM 223-2011, a recommendation of award to GNS Management Services, LLC, to provide the Diamond High School pool mechanical systems replacement for the municipality of Anchorage Public Works Department Maintenance and Operations Division, ITB 2011C006, $570,342.08 in purchasing. Item 9D12 under new business, the same memorandum AM 224-2011, change order number 2 to purchase order number 290265 with ODS Companies, ODS, and purchase order number 290266 with Benefit Help Solutions to provide third-party administration and preferred provider services to the municipality of Anchorage, Employee Relations Department, $1,384,317 purchasing. Item 9D13 is memorandum AM 225-2011, proprietary purchase of computer software license renewal and hardware maintenance service from International Business Machines, IBM, for the municipality of Anchorage, Information Technology Department, ITD, $306,035.20 purchasing. On ordinances and resolutions for introduction, there's a lot of them. Item 9F11, Ordinance AO 2011-52, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 15.20.020 regarding abatement of illegal campsites, Department of Law, public hearing request on 4/26/2011. There's an 9F11A, a semi-memorandum AM 226/2011. Item 9F12, Ordinance AO 2011-53, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code, an ordinance amending Anchorage Ordinance 2010-67 to revise the term of easement for a Chugach Electric Association facility in Girdwood. Real Estate Department, Heritage Land Bank, public hearing request on 4/26/11. There's an A with it too, 12A, it's memorandum AM 227/2011. There is item F13, Ordinance AO 2011-54, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code Chapter 15.70 to address and clarify noise control standards and definitions, amending Anchorage Municipal Code of Regulations Chapter 15.05 regarding fees, fines, and penalties. Public hearing request on 4/26/2011 to be submitted is the caption that's on there. Item F14, Ordinance AO 2011-55, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Code Sections 10.50.035, 21.50.160, and 21.50.500 to require identification check in the retail sale and service of alcoholic beverages in a restaurant or eating place or any premises licensed as a beverage dispensary, and the retail sales of alcoholic beverages by a package store with specific reference to applicability of 1.45.010, establishing identification check as a condition of the use and standard for site plan approval for certain uses related to alcoholic beverages, and establishing immediate effective date for land use conditional permits and site plan approvals and current use for these designated areas. Public hearing requested is 4/26/2011, and I would like public safety to take a look at that on 4/20/2011. If you would, please, Paul. Item 9F15, Resolution Air 2011-110, resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $30,850,000 from general obligation bond proceeds to the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area Capital Improvement Program Fund 114 to pay the costs of road and storm drainage capital improvement projects in the Public Works Department, Office of Management and Budget. Public hearing request on this is 4/26/2011. There is a 9F15A that comes with it, a semi-memorandum, AM 228/2011. Item 9F16, Resolution 2011-111, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $520,000 to the area-wide General Capital Improvement Program Fund 401 in the Anchorage Fire Department and $421,000 to the Public Transportation Capital Improvement Program Fund 485 in the Public Transportation Department from general obligation bonds proceeds to pay the costs of area-wide public safety and public transportation improvements and related capital improvements, Office of Management and Budget. Public hearing requested on 4/26/2011. There is a semi-memorandum with it, AM 229/2011. Item 9F17, Resolution Air 2011-112, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $1,150,000 from general obligation bond proceed to the Anchorage Fire Service Area Capital Improvement Program Fund 431 to pay the costs of fire protection capital improvement projects in the Anchorage Fire Department, Office of Management and Budget. Requested on public hearing on that is 4/26/2011. There is an accompanying AM 230-2011. Item 9F18, Resolution 2011-113, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $250,000 from general obligation bond proceeds to the Anchorage Metropolitan Police Service Area Capital Improvement Program Fund 451 to pay the costs of public safety, facilities, and capital improvement projects in the Anchorage Police Department, Office of Management and Budget. Public hearing request on 4/26/2011. There's an AM with that, 231/2011. Item 9F19, Resolution 2011-114, resolution approving a letter of agreement between the Municipality of Anchorage and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 1547, regarding a power dispatch alternative shift agreement, Employee Relations Department. Public hearing request on 4/26/2011. There's an accompanying AM with it, 232/2011. Item 9F20, Resolution Air 2011-115, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating a grant of $5,050,461 from the United States Department of Homeland Security and a contribution of $101,009 from the Anchorage Fire Service Area Fund 131, Anchorage Fire Department 2011 operating budget to the Federal Grants Fund 241, Anchorage Fire Department to increase fire and emergency response capability through staffing of 26 firefighter and 3 safety officer positions for 24 months, utilizing funds provided under the FY 2010 Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response SAFER Grant Program. Public hearing request on 4/26/2011. There is an accompanying semi-memorandum, AM 233/2011. Now, is there anything that needs laid on the table? What? You what? Yes, we don't have anything. She says it's a record. Ask unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the inclusion of this addendum to the agenda? Not seeing one. We're now down to consent agenda. If I get a motion on the consent agenda.
Second.
Now we'll go to those assembly members that want to pull it for a little further discussion. Debbie, we'll start with you. Anything else, ma'am?
No.
Mike?
I'd like to pull Foxtrot 14, F14. That's all.
Thank you, Mike. Paul?
No items.
Ernie?
I would like to pull 9A2.
Couldn't live without plastics for that week? Bill?
9 Delta 11 for a declaration of a conflict, and also pull 9F1, F2, F3, and F9 for changing the public hearing date.
Which ones? Which F series?
Foxtrot 1, 2, 3, and 9. Budget-related items.
Thank you, Bill. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 9 Delta 6, just to get a quick clarification. Item 9 Foxtrot 4 to reset the public hearing date.
Okay, 9 Delta 6, and what's the other one?
9 Foxtrot 4. And similarly, 9 Foxtrot 13, my intent is to ask that not be introduced, and we'll get the actual text before we introduce it, married up with 9 Foxtrot 4.
I mean, we're not just going to go with to be submitted?
We're not going to go with to be submitted.
Is there any objection to removal of that item?
Well, we'll get to it when we get to it. But
Does the administration have a problem with that before we get to it? Yes.
That was 9 Foxtrot 13, correct.
Thank you. Jennifer?
No items, but I would, you'd ask the administration as far as 9 Foxtrot 13. Is there going to be a comment, or are we going to wait for that?
I would like to get it now if we could, Jennifer. Administration?
They're fine.
I checked.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Is that all, Jennifer? Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 9 Apple 3.
Okay. Chris?
No items.
Harriet?
No items, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Administration? Thank you, sir. Please vote on the balance of the consent agenda, except for those items that were pulled for a little further discussion.
I'm sorry?
We've got one more. There. That was approved unanimously with the exception of those items that were pulled for a little further discussion. We'll now go back to the first one. It's item 9A1, Resolution 2011-92, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing May 6, 2011 as Police Memorial Day.
Move to approve.
Could we get a second? Ask unanimous. Not seeing objection. Debbie?
Thank you. Chief Mueller, you come down, please. This is a resolution of the Assembly recognizing May 6, 2011 as Police Memorial Day, and an opportunity for remembering and honoring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our community. Whereas on Police Memorial Day, we honor the memory of the fallen and recognize those who devote their lives to enforcing our laws, bringing criminals to justice, and making our communities safer. And whereas all law enforcement officers deserve our appreciation for the work that they do, and citizens fulfill an important civic responsibility by supporting their work to protect our community. And whereas our dedicated peace officers put themselves at great risk while working tirelessly on the front lines in the fight against crime. And whereas behind the name of each who died in the line of duty lies a story of courage and devotion to duty, not to mention a deep sense of loss for the service, the country, and above all, for friends, relatives, and partners. And whereas as we remember the fallen officers, we also remember their survivors. And whereas we can never repay these gallant men and women for their service or adequately comfort their families, we can only honor their memory, not only in words and ceremony, but in our determination to promote justice, uphold the law, and preserve the peace and safety they helped purchase with their lives. And whereas the following Anchorage Police Department officers have given their lives in the line of duty. Officer Benjamin F. Strong, 1968. Officer Jonathan P. Flora, 1975. Officer Harry Kyer, 1980. Officer Harry B. Hansen, Jr., 1986. Officer Louis G. Mazel, 1989. Officer Dan R. Seeley, 1996. Officer Justin T. Woolham, 2001. Now therefore be it resolved. The Anchorage Assembly remembers and honors all those who have died in the line of duty by recognizing May 6, 2011 as Police Memorial Day. All residents are encouraged to remember the fallen and their loved ones. All people are encouraged to thank the men and women of law enforcement who serve our community and protect our citizens, passed and approved by this Anchorage Assembly this day.
Thank you very much. I know that it means a great deal to the members of our department and members of law enforcement statewide that we have this day and that you folks have chosen to recognize it. We're happy this year to not have added any names to that list, but it's a time for us to remember those, and I want to appreciate thank you for this on behalf of the members of the Anchorage Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it. Next item in front of us is Item 9A2, Resolution Air 2011-104, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Actions, efforts in support of the reduction of plastic bags through awareness campaign of a week without plastics. Mr. Hall, you pulled that, sir.
Move to approve.
Ask unanimous consent. Should no objection, that's approved, Ernie. Go ahead. Are you presenting, or?
I'm presenting. Jennifer's reading.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Actions efforts in support of the reduction of plastic bags through an awareness campaign of a week without plastics. Whereas the U.S. consumes up to 100 billion plastic bags annually, and only 1 to 3% are recycled, and whereas U.S. retailers pay $4 billion annually for plastic grocery bags, and that cost is passed on to the consumers, and whereas instead of decomposing, plastic bags leached toxic particles into soil and water, and whereas the Great Pacific Garbage Patch has been estimated at over 270,000 square miles of plastics and other non-decomposable material harming our oceans and critical habitat for Alaska's fish and wildlife, and whereas the use of reusable grocery bags is one way to promote a healthy and sustainable lifestyle in the community, and whereas plastic grocery bags that do not end up in landfills litter Anchorage's landscape, and reducing the numbers of bags used would make Anchorage more beautiful, and whereas the reusable grocery bags are more durable and offer a simple alternative solution to the growing number of plastic bags and end up in the environment, and whereas the Anchorage chapter of the Alaska Youth for Environmental Action have worked diligently with local businesses that have agreed to promote the use of reusable grocery bags. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Action's efforts and supports the reduction of plastic bags through an awareness campaign of a week without plastics, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this, what day is it? 12th day of April, 2011. Thank you.
Is there anybody here from that group?
No.
Must not be. Thank you. Next item in front of us is on the addendum to agenda. It's item 9A3, Resolution Air 2011-109, a resolution of the Anchorage Assembly honoring and remembering former municipal attorney William Bill Green. Ms. Jackson, you pulled that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve.
Second.
That's unanimous from the body. There's no objection. That's approved. You're reading, Elby?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
A resolution of the Anchorage Assembly honoring and remembering former municipal attorney William Bill Green. Whereas Bill Green served the citizens of Anchorage for many years under Mayors Tom Fink, Rick Mystrom, and George Roche, beginning in 1994 as an assistant municipal attorney, then advancing to deputy municipal attorney, and then appointment by Mayor George Roche as municipal attorney from 2000 to 2003. And whereas Bill graduated from Denison University in 1959, served in the Marines, and then graduated from Ohio State University Law School in 1966. He came to Alaska in 1966, first to Fairbanks as a Superior Court Master, then as a prosecutor. And whereas Bill joined an Anchorage law firm in 1968, became a partner in the firm, and then opened his own office, and later served as a district court judge. Bill hired on with the municipality as an assistant municipal attorney in 1994, became deputy, and then was appointed as a municipal attorney under Mayor Roche, serving in that capacity for 3 years. And whereas, during his term as municipal attorney, Bill implemented numerous positive changes within the office, including installing case management software systems, which remain in use today, standardizing work product, dumping dictation machines and dictaphones, making lawyers learn to type, eliminating using any small paper clips, and tearing off the ends of old-fashioned legal folders, making them all letter-sized. And whereas Bill continued his public service by working thereafter for the state of Alaska as an assistant attorney general and contract counsel. And whereas Bill was an incredible mentor to many new and experienced municipal lawyers with a widely recognized work ethic and legal skills, as well as a well-developed sense of humor. And whereas Bill died on March 27th, leaving his wife, Linda Green, family, and many friends. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly resolves: William Bill Green is honored and remembered for his many years of service and commitment to the people of the municipality of Anchorage and the state of Alaska.
Bill was a good person to work with. We really appreciate his time he spent with us. And we never had any doubt as to where he stood on an issue. It was good to have him here. Next item in front of us. It's on page 2. It's item 9D6, said memorandum 212-2011 request for approval to enter into a grant agreement with the Northeast Community Center and the Boys and Girls Club of South Central Alaska for the purpose of supporting the operations of the Northern Community Center and the Mountain View Recreation Center. Mr. Flynn, you pulled that.
Move to approve.
Move to second. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Frasca, do you have a chance to verify we got the right number here?
Through the chair, yes, Mr. Flynn, that is the amount that was budgeted for the organizations and purposes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the body's indulgence. You may recall we had some vacillation over to what this number would be in our budget proceedings. I'm pleased to see it all worked out for the best. With that, urge approval.
Ask unanimous approval. Is there any objection from the body? Not seeing any of that item is approved. Thank you, Pat. Next item in front of us is item 9D11, a same memorandum AM 717-2011, amendment number 1 to utility relocation agreement with General Communications, Inc., GCI, for 40th Avenue Extension, Lake Otis Parkway to Dale Street.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve.
Second.
And I believe Mr. Starr has a conflict to declare.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my company has property that I'm working on, a project that adjoins this one, and previous rulings have said that it's too close of an association to approve this. I would directly benefit from the upgrades.
Then please, at the direction of the chair, you don't participate in this, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Is there any objection to approval of this item? Madam Clerk, amendments to reflect this item as approved with the exception of Mr. Starr, who was directed not to participate because he's got a conflict. Is your project almost done, Mr. Starr?
Almost. Grand opening on May 20th.
I appreciate it, especially where you put it in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Beautiful building.
It looks nice. Next item in front of us, under resolutions or ordinances and resolutions for introduction, item 9F1, ordinance AO 2011-41, an ordinance setting the rates of tax levy, approving the amount of municipal property tax, levying taxes for all services of the municipality of Anchorage, Anchorage General Government for fiscal year 2011. Mr. Starr, you pulled that.
Move to introduce.
Second. Third.
Okay. Bill?
We'll need a public hearing on this and the others on the 19th. And the reason for that...
This month, sir?
Yes, sir, next week. And I know we've been trying to keep the 19th light, but the 26th is not light.
No.
And we, I think, owe it to the public to have a deliberative process on the budget amendments. And so my motion here is that we move the public hearing to the 19th on all four of these items. And the other...
The clerk tells me we don't have time for public notice. If she's right, we may have to call a special meeting, Bill. Because you have to have so much time for public notice.
So you're saying that a week's not an appropriate amount of time? What is it a 2-week notice?
No, we have to, Dennis will back me up, but we have to notice for 7 days. I'll defer to Dennis.
The meeting is essentially a week from today, so I thought this would do it.
Help us out of this morass.
We need one more.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I need to catch up with you. I stepped out for a minute. What item are we referring to?
Item 9F1. This deals with the budget. Right now, it's set for public hearing on 4/26. Mr. Starr would like to move to 4/19. The clerk says we don't have enough time to do an adequate public notice requirement to do it a week from today.
Is that right?
And the question is that correct, or what are our options, Bill? Excuse me. What are our options?
Mr. Chairman, can we move this, and I'll double check and get right back to you?
Okay.
I'll defer on the other.
Let's defer on the other ones until we get back to here.
And if you don't mind me adding, Mr. Chairman, we have to approve the budget amendments by the 26th, April 26th.
That's our last one, yeah.
And if we don't have an opportunity for a second public hearing, we'll take all the testimony on one evening and need action on that night. We have to get the
So bring your jammies and sleeping bags and get ready.
It's just a compromise schedule to only give the public one meeting.
Now, the same thing applies to your item 9F9, deals with budget.
2, 3, and 9, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Flynn has number F4 in the middle, though.
There you go. Item 9F4, Ordinance AO 2011-49, ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 1.15.70 to clarify property line noise emission standards, extending the rhythmic mean standard for the construction season, and providing for measurement site on the property line. Public hearing requested is 4/26/11. Mr. Flynn?
I will very hesitantly move to introduce.
Second.
If I can get
Is there a third? Okay. Pat?
And just to move to change the public hearing date to our meeting on May 24.
5/24/2011. Is there any objection?
Haven't been part of this, but there was a committee, a task force, that spent a whole lot of time looking at this previously. Are they familiar with what you've done, and have you worked with them?
Don't give me this what you've done stuff. This is her legislation. If she'd asked me first, I would have said never do this.
All right, just constant.
Do you remember, Debbie, the problems we had trying to define what's noise?
Yeah, this is a really sticky wicket, and so I'd like it to be, what you're doing, to be clearly communicated with the myriad number of people who care about this passionately.
I've been working with the health department on this, and no, I have not been in discussion with the task force, but what I'm trying to do is make this consistent with other measurements as far as noise ordinance between two districts.
Just as an aside, Ms. Johnson, there was a group particularly of construction people, including AGC folks, that really, really are interested, so you might...
And I will check with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to 5/24/2011? That's set for public hearing that night. Dennis, I saw you beeped in.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about 9F1, right, which is AO...
Well, yeah, 9F1, F2, F3, and F4, and
Right, okay.
we're doing just one to begin with.
Right, 1 and 2 are essentially the same in this situation, since they're both ordinances. And what it is that the charter requires that the public hearing be held at least 7 days after publication of the notice. Because it's an ordinance, the publication definition is in the charter, and that requires newspaper of general circulation. As you may recall, we did an omnibus ordinance to set up publication by internet. Okay, that doesn't apply to charter-driven requirements, only code-driven requirements. Because the charter requires publication in the newspaper, you have to have that publication out at least 7 days before the public hearing.
If I call a special meeting on the 20th,
It takes us about 3 days to get it in this.
3 days, okay. If I called a special meeting for the 21st, we could take public testimony that night and take action.
Assuming that the clerk's office and the newspaper get that publication out.
Let me ask Barbara. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's getting awfully close to the Easter weekend, and that's kind of what I was trying to avoid here, so urging some caution. We need to check with staff to see if they can present.
We could do it. Yeah, we could do it then. Oh, is that Good Friday? Okay, why don't you see if we can. Bill, we might be able, clerk says we might be able to get it into public notice in the newspaper, so I could have a special meeting on the 21st. We could take public testimony on that night.
I'd say
Then we
pass.
could take action, huh?
I'd say pass. I don't see any reason to bring the entire body and the staff over for the accommodation of the public. We just need to make sure we give them adequate time on the 26th then.
Okay.
I really don't, it's financial
Well, I may
expense.
call, we may move the assembly meeting up on the 26th to earlier in the day. That's always an option, too.
Could do that. Again, we've got the requirement, and not to debate the issue, but we've got the requirement to get assembly members' amendments in for discussion as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Your other option, the drop-dead date is May 4th, so if you took public testimony on the 26th and noticed a special meeting for the 27th or 28th, you then would have that option, and you could always cancel the meeting if we got through the business on the 26th. That'd probably be
It's a good option, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Appreciate your help on that. What? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. Am I hearing that the vote's on the 27th, or whenever, but I won't be here from the 27th through the 30th, just an FYI. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there any objection to the introduction of this item as it's currently stated? Public hearing 4/26/2011. Not seeing any objection, that's done. What? Okay, we still need 3, I'm sorry. Let's just get them back out. Okay, we've got 3. Next item is item 9F2, Ordinance 2011-42, ordinancing setting the rate of tax levy, approving the amount of municipal tax, and levying taxes for the Anchorage School District for tax year 2011. Bill?
Move to introduce.
Second.
Third.
Okay, same thing on this one. Please use your buttons when you do second and third. The clerk would appreciate it. It keeps it cleaner.
It wasn't coming up at first.
Okay. That's set for public hearing on 4/26/2011. Item 9F3, Resolution Air 2011-73, Resolution of Municipality of Anchorage revising and appropriating funds for the 2011 General Government Operating Budget for the Municipality of Anchorage. Public hearing requested is 4/26/2011. Bill?
Move to introduce.
Second.
You got them? Okay. Seeing no objection, that'll happen on 426.
Yeah, just a point of order there on the items. We want to make sure we probably do the revisions first before we set the tax rate. So perhaps if that could appear on the agenda that way, that would make sense.
If you would, Madam Clerk. Item 9F4, ordinance CO 2011-49, ordinance of the municipality of Anchorage.
9.
What? We did 4 before. Okay, we're fine. How about go down to 9? Item 9F9, resolution 2011-103, resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $3,096,782 of area-wide general fund 101 fund balance to the real estate services department, area-wide general fund 101.
Reading on that, sir.
Okay. Mr. Starr.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Third.
For 426?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any objection? Not seeing any, that will happen. Thank you. Now moving on to addendum to the agenda.
No, 14.
We have item 9F13, ordinance 2011-54, ordinance amending Municipal Code, Chapter 15.70 to address and clarify noise control standards and definitions. Mr. Flynn pulled that, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't move to introduce. As I mentioned, because Ms. Johnson's is delayed until late May, I'd just soon let staff get this thing.
And it was not submitted to us, so we're not killing more trees.
Right. So we'll wait till we get actually
Is there
submitted.
any objection to not submitting that item? Not seeing any.
Thank you.
That item's not in front of us. Next item in front of us is item 9F14, ordinance AO 2011-55, I keep trying to add a 1 in there. An ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Codes, sections 10.50.035, 21.50.160, and 21.50.500 to require identification check in the retail sale and service of alcoholic beverages at a restaurant or eating place or at any premises licensed as a beverage dispensary, and in the retail sale of alcoholic beverages by a packaged liquor store, with specific reference to the applicability of 1.45.500, 1.010. Thank you. I'm getting tired. Mike, you pulled that.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Is there a third? I'll be the third.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only pulled it to ask to be added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, would you please add him as a co-sponsor? Okay. And Paul, I've asked you to take that in public safety at your next meeting.
April 20th, Wednesday.
Ms. Osiander.
I've just, Mr. Horman, as chair of that committee, are you going to have room at the meeting in the fire training area for, this may cause a significant amount of people to come.
Chief Hall's shaking his head yes in the affirmative.
We'll make sure you can get up to 240 people.
I think that should be plenty, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any objection to introduction of that item? Not seeing anything except for public hearing on 4/26/2011. Busy night. That should complete our... Okay. That completes our consent agenda, the addendum to the agenda. We're now going to go to old business unfinished action on public hearing items. The first one is item 11A. AO 2011-31, amending AMC 2.30.070, voting, providing conditions for assembly members' participation by means of telephone or other electronic means. Public hearing was closed 3/8/2011. Ms. Gray Jackson. Move to approve, seconded by Mr. Gutierrez. Amending 3/8/2011. Motion to approve is still on the floor. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Well, we've already got a motion. I'm sorry. I should have phrased it differently, Paul.
Okay.
Any discussion from assembly members?
I've got a move to postpone indefinitely.
Well, we got Ms. Johnston first and then you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. She jumped in ahead of you.
Okay, that's fine.
Jennifer?
Actually, I was going to do the same thing, amended to move to postpone indefinitely. I will be gone and calling in on April 26th, and I find with ordinances like this that as soon as you support something, you're the first one that's going to offend it, and I will be the first one. And therefore, I do not...
Get a second from Chris. Chris? Okay. Discussion from assembly members. If the motion on the floor is to postpone this indefinitely, that means it goes away. Please vote. That is gone.
Mr. Trainee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had thought that you were going to work on some kind of a substitute version. Is there
I
any?
will. I'll work on one and bring it back here when it's clean and ready to go, Debbie.
Thank you.
It's just an easier way to deal with it rather than let it sit up there and linger for a long time.
Well,
I would like to have the Wood Amendment back on the record, but the clerk told me she would personally break my fingers if I bring it back.
Well, I just was surprised with all the people who apparently wanted it still there. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this next one's going to be a little convoluted. This is item 11B. It's AO 2011-37S, amending the requirement for annual disability letters in AMC 12.15.015 after final disability has been determined. Public hearing was closed 3/29/2011, approved 3/29/2011, reconsidered and postponed from 3/29/2011. And I'm going to turn the chair over to the vice chairman. What do you want?
Yeah, please don't move. All right, Mr. Chairman, as you may recall, when we began our deliberations on this subject, you declared you had a conflict of interest. We have since consulted with counsel and would like to revisit that decision. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd offer you the opportunity to specify what the nature of your conflict may or may not be so that we can rule appropriately.
And thank you for the information. This comes from our attorney. Let me see. I'm a disabled veteran concerning AO 2011-37S. I'm advised by legal counsel that A, being a disabled veteran is not a conflict unless I have a substantial financial or private interest as defined in code. 2, AO 2011-37 does not seek to expand eligibility, so it's without a financial component. It deals with program administration, not the benefit amount or who is eligible. Item 3, conflict decision by the body must follow the steps in AMC 1.15.035. 4, this means the body must use the factors listed in the code to determine if I have a substantial financial or private interest that keeps me from voting. Per the guidelines of 1.15.035, here's my disclosure for some consideration. 1, my status as a disabled veteran is not under consideration in this AO. Number 2, my status as a disabled veteran does not vary directly or substantially with the outcome in this ordinance. 3, my status as a disabled veteran is determined by the VA, not the Muni. Item 4, my disclosure is a private interest disclosure. As a disqualified as a disabled veteran, I am a member of a class of persons who would be subject to compliance with this code. 5, I have no monetary gain. The ordinance has no financial component. 6, I am confident I am able to place the public interest above my personal status. 7, I do not wish to diminish the public trust, so I look for this body to make the ultimate call as to whether I should be excused from voting. I appreciate the body's indulgence and allow me to clarify the record. Questions?
Thank you for that. Ms. Osiander?
Mr. Flynn, I would move that Mr. Trainee does not have a substantial financial interest. It appears from his disclosure statement as if his condition as a disabled veteran is independent of the action that will be taken here tonight. It also is apparent that it's not necessarily a substantial part of his income, and that the action that we're taking isn't necessarily going to impact the financial status of his household. So at this point, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Osiander. Ruling as chair, I concur with your assessment, and therefore, Mr. Trainee, you will be compelled to participate in the voting on this measure.
Compelled? I like that phrase.
With that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, the motion to approve. What? Well, we reconsidered it, but we need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Discussion from assembly members. Please vote.
And Mr. Trainee, it's still the S version, correct?
The S version, ma'am.
Thank you.
37S. I don't want to go back here again to this. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate it. You need to vote, Ms. Osiander. Thank you, ma'am. That was approved by the body. Now let's go on to...
Done, 10 minutes.
Huh?
10-minute break.
Oh, we do, don't we? Before we get into the other one. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break because it's not quite 6 o'clock yet.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
before we break, I just wanted to say thank you. For those who don't know, tonight is my 43rd birthday, and the chairman was kind enough to buy birthday cake, and so it's back in the back, and I'll slice a little bit of it up. I may or may not partake myself, but everyone is welcome.
Happy birthday.
So,
Happy birthday. 43, huh? I remember that. A few decades ago. Thank you. It's interesting. Parents request, and I may ruin the name, sorry, Avia Hirsch, regarding Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Actions Week Without Plastics campaign. Are you here? Are you the one that requested the parents' request? Yes. Well, come up to the podium. Come on and join us. It's fine. How do you pronounce your name?
Thank you. Aviva Hirsch.
Okay.
And
Well, you've got 3 minutes.
okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm Aviva Hirsch. I'm Sarah Wilson, and I'm Paige Crickbaugh. And we are members of the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Action. We want to thank you for unanimously passing our resolution. And for the past year and a half, we've been working on a campaign to reduce flimsy plastic shopping bags in Anchorage. We chose this topic because plastic bags break down into tiny particles that instead of decomposing last for over 1,000 years and get into our food system. Not only are the bags detrimental to the environment, they are expensive. Retailers in the United States spend over $4 billion on the bags, and that price is ultimately passed on to consumers. The bags also litter the landscape of Alaska, contributing to our pristine beauty, the erosion of our pristine beauty, and we can see that as the snow is melting.
In the past year, nearly 1,000 have pledged their support to our resolution. Next week, from the 16th to the 22nd, we are bringing about awareness of our resolution in the event Week Without Plastics. Local stores such as Walgreens, Natural Pantry, and Musagaya have agreed to host our new event. These stores are allowing us to educate the community and bring about awareness of plastic waste. We have packed a week of exciting events relating to our campaign. Our goal is to show people how easy it is to be sustainable.
However, this is just the beginning. We plan to continue our efforts to reduce plastic bag use in Anchorage, and we need your help by supporting our resolution and not use plastic bags the whole week. In addition, we challenge you to participate in our Week Without Plastics. To help you get started, we've brought you each a reusable bag to use next time you go shopping. We also like to thank you for recognizing our efforts.
Thank you. Paul, you have... First of all, do you have the handout for him? Okay, who's reading it?
We should.
Okay, can you read it again because they're here? We have a presentation for you guys. Okay? It's just that now they're here, Jennifer.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Actions efforts and support of the reduction of plastic bags through the awareness campaign of A Week Without Plastics. Whereas the U.S. consumes up to 100 billion plastic bags annually, and only 1 to 3% are recycled, and whereas U.S. retailers pay $4 billion annually for plastic grocery bags, and that cost is passed on to consumers, and whereas instead of decomposing, plastic bags leach toxic particles into the soil and water, and whereas the Great Pacific Garbage Patch has been estimated at over 270,000 square miles of plastics and other non-decomposable material harming our oceans and critical habitat for Alaska's fish and wildlife, and whereas the use of reusable grocery bags is one way to promote a healthy and sustainable lifestyle in the community, and whereas plastic grocery bags that do not end up in landfills litter Anchorage's landscape and reduce the number of bags would make Anchorage more beautiful, and whereas the reusable grocery bags are more durable and offer a simple alternative solution to the growing number of plastic bags that end up in the environment, and whereas the Anchorage chapter of the Alaska Youth for Environmental Action has worked diligently with local businesses that have agreed to promote the use of reusable grocery bags, now therefore be it resolved, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes the Anchorage chapter of Alaska Youth for Environmental Action's efforts and supports the reduction of plastic bags through an awareness campaign of A Week Without Plastics.
Just wanted to...
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, I just want to thank you, young ladies, for being here tonight, for taking these steps, these great steps to making our community better. And if I get enough of these reusable bags, I won't need all those plastic ones. They break just about as easy as the paper ones did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Next item in front of us is item 13A, ordinance 2011-24, an ordinance repealing Title 31 Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and Title 32 Municipal Light and Power Utility, amending chapters 4.50 and 4.70.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin
Mr. Flynn.
Before we reconvene the public hearing, I just want to remind the folks out there the intent is to continue the public hearing to our meeting on the 26th while I do a little bit more work to try and get this thing polished up. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
And you cannot testify again unless substantially different. So, if you want to come and testify on this now, the public hearing is now open. Please, you've got 3 minutes. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name. Welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you very much. First, if there was somebody here before me, I would certainly give them the right to be here because they're supposed to sign up. My name is Paul, middle initial D. Kendall. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. And I come here tonight on several issues, but I'm not sure how that's going to transpire. Whatever I do, I'll do respectfully and with well-intended intentions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a simple question. That question is, where do we want to go? The next question is, just a second, I forgot here. Where do we want to go? How do we want to get there? And what is it that's in our way or stopping us from being there? And one of the critical considerations in those three questions is going to be that all of the data is on top of the table. No more secrets under words of proprietary or non-disclosure and those other things. They have to stop. And in my closing minutes, Mr. Chairman, I want to read from over here a list of all of the oil, all of the countries bringing oil into my country, my America. Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
It is my position that the topic should be over here to speak so that we might judge the content and character of those...
Sir, you need to come back to the microphone, please. We can't catch you there.
Well...
Please come back to the microphone. I have no problem with you reading it. I just want it to be on the record.
Well, I do like my First Amendment rights, but I do respect the majority of our citizens and your chairmanship. So I'm going to read these names off, and please tell me the time is up. This is from the Energy Association. This is from the U.S. federal government. This is a list of countries bringing in oil products. And by the way, I think our senators are our new heroes in Alaska so far. These are the countries: OPEC, Algeria, Angola, Ecuador, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Venezuela, non-OPEC countries bringing oil and other products, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Bahamas, Belgium, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Burma, Cameroon, Canada, Chad, China, Taiwan, Colombia, Congo, Egypt, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Estonia, Finland, France, Gabon, Germany, Guatemala, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Italy, Japan, whatever the word is, Korea, North Korea South, Latvia, Lithuania, Mexico, Netherlands, Norway, Peru, Portugal, Russia, Spain, South Africa, Sweden, Thailand, Trinidad and Tobago, Ukraine, United Kingdom, which is England. The final two are Vietnam and the Virgin Islands. All of those countries are bringing oil into my country, and they're taking the capital out so that they can hold the new world order. And Alaska, Chairman, and this body has a chance now to reconstruct and rethink and re-mindset our residential energy sectors, and we have a chance to lead the rest of the world. This can no longer be sustained. And I think you passed my time. Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to testify on this issue, please come forward. This is Title 31 and 32, sir.
That's correct. Members of the Assembly, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, my name is Randall Buckendorf, and I'm the head of BP's Alaska Legal Department, one of those companies that works in most of those countries he just mentioned. I spent my entire legal career in Alaska since moving here in 1993. Prior to moving into a management position, my career is focused on environmental, legislative, and regulatory matters, including over a decade in rate proceedings in front of the Regulatory Commission of Alaska as a client, as a lawyer, and as an expert witness. I am not here in my capacity as a BP lawyer, but as a private citizen who resides here and who, along with my wife, is raising two young third-generation Alaskan boys. I'm not a member of the board of either AWWU or MLNP. I live in South Anchorage and get my electric from Chugach and live in a Potter Valley subdivision that's not served by AWWU for water service. With no disrespect to Ms. Johnson or Mr. Flynn, who's a personal friend, I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance to repeal Title 31 related to AWWU. Sir, Mr. Posey, I have no opinion on the proposed repeal of Title 32. I urge this body to evaluate the repeal of Title 31 and 32 as distinct proposals and not a package deal. Let me explain why I care and why I believe the repeal of Title 31 is not in the public's best interest. On November 2nd, 2005, I was sworn in as a founding member and the first chair of the AWWU Board of Directors. I served on the Advisory Commission prior to that and spent the better part of nearly 3 years evaluating best management practices of water, wastewater utilities around the country, speaking with members of those utilities, speaking with assembly members at the time, the mayor's office, and the management team at AWWU. We evaluated RCA rate decisions. I learned more about MESA than I ever imagined I would learn going into that, and in the end, we lobbied the Alaska legislature to get AWWU out of the control of the RCA, and in the end took a significant role in drafting Title 31, presenting it in public workshops and testifying before this body in 2005. Essential to that analysis was the separation of politics, to the extent possible, from management decisions. So why? Regulatory agencies, such as ADEC, EPA, and most importantly the RCA, scrutinize public utilities and operated utilities very carefully. We spoke with all of those agencies and all firmly supported a more independent board for an entity such as AWWU that has such an important and critical public health mandate. On the horizon was the listing of the Beluga in the inlet and the impending decision by EPA on the AWWU water the permit, which has the ability to require billions, basically. Is my time up, Mr. Chairman?
Time's up, sir.
Okay.
Questions from Assembly members. Mr. Flynn, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could just offer Mr. Buckendorf a couple moments to finish up.
It's absolutely your prerogative, sir.
Please.
Thank you, sir. If Title 31 is repealed, I believe regulatory oversight will increase. And in the RCA specifically, it will go back to what it was pre-2005. During the same time frame, the MOU and AWU were in fierce battle every year over tariffs. The RCA disliked completely the system that was in place, where the MOU and AWWU had a system of balances back and forth. They disallowed many of those charges, which were actual charges. They just disliked the process. The MUSA case is still ongoing, half a decade later, with over $50 million at stake. So the AWWU, what we worked with was with the legislature to try and carve out, to deregulate AWWU from the RCA. That's what is going on throughout the rest of the country. We proposed legislation. However, one South Anchorage Assembly person essentially blocked that not Assembly member, but legislator, blocked that for 6 years. He's no longer serving. Critical to that structure was that the utility be governed by a board of director. That's the case everywhere else around the country. I still believe deregulation of AWWU should occur. If this body and the mayor agree to levy a tax or implement a MUSA cost, it should have the right to do so without being overturned by yet another state-appointed political body. Recent changes have occurred in the legislature that appear to make it possible. If you wish AWWU to pay the MOA a dividend, forget it. The RCA disliked that process as well. So in conclusion, the law is rarely, if ever, perfect. Statutes, regulations, and yes, municipal code, however well conceived, rarely work as intended the first time it's written. If the powers of the board need modified, amend Section 3110.030. If the fiscal management's not right, amend Section 3120.010. If the capital improvement and plant upgrade process is too vague, add a new section of code. We looked at that in 2005 and deemed it not necessary. And importantly, if the Assembly wants a more direct involvement, amend Section 3110.020A to reduce the number of members at large from 2 to 1 and have one Assembly member a member of the board. We initially proposed that in 2005, but none of the Assembly members at that time wanted any more to do with AWWU. Whatever you do, I would urge a very careful and thoughtful analysis. Please don't let what appears to be a battle on an electric utility over a wind farm ruin a decade-plus of effort to create what is nationally recognized as one of the best-run water, wastewater utilities in the country. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from Assembly members? Mr. Birch.
I had one of the merits of the of moving in the direction suggested is that there be more opportunity to share payroll systems, share accounting systems, share have as a city entity to have some advantages of scale by virtue of the shared platforms for various. Do you have a perspective on that as opposed to having differing?
I do, and I believe that can be addressed not through whether it's a board or whether it's more managed. That process was dealt with. In fact, for the first 6 to 9 months after the board came into place and Title 31 was in place, that's what occurred. And it was slowly over a period of time that through Mayor Begich's office, the Assembly, and many workshops that it was looked at and evaluated how to more effectively and more efficiently provide the services and in a manner that was cost-effective. I don't believe Title 31 precludes sharing of municipal services.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other questions for you, sir. Thank you for testifying. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward. Hello, sir. Good to see you again.
Members of the Assembly, my name is Tim Potter with Dowell HCAM. I'm here tonight because I left the meeting early last time and watched on TV at home a line of people come forward and really set kind of a tone for if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And I believe that for Title 31, which I have much more experience with AWWU, that you'd be going the wrong way by repealing the current situation. And to get to it in a couple of different ways, you've got a well-run, well-managed operation. It's very critical for that critical infrastructure to be managed and put in place, operated, maintained in a very efficient fashion. And the operator needs to be nimble enough to be able to move to make things happen, whether regulatory changes force that or other things. My fear would be, Mr. Birch, in the thought of consolidation, to be able to have an efficient operation by having everyone operating on the same platform, works to some extent. You know, that's a great thing in theory, but I think that AWW has proved the opposite. They can be much more reactive to the things that they need to do, especially construction-related items of reviews, getting things done, and getting projects to actually get on the street, get performed, the construction to get closed out and done. My concern would be that if you lump in, and let's just take procurement for an example, I don't know, I haven't asked the questions, but I'm betting, and I'll bet you a good dinner, your choice, that if you did an examination of procurement through AWW and procurement through PM&E projects, say through our procurement operation, that you'd see that the time span spent in getting the RFPs out, getting things done and procured, getting the construction done and closed out, happens much faster, is still fair to everybody involved, that the work gets done, and it gets done before freeze-up, and it actually happens in the year that everybody wanted to start in. And if you want to ask more questions in detail off the record, I'll be more than happy to give you some examples. And I think there's a number of projects right now that through the procurement process and going through the administration are slowed down so much that they end up happening either at the wrong season when the NTP is granted, so you're out doing work either in frozen snow conditions and or you're waiting another year, risking increased costs due to the extension of time. So sometimes your thought, and maybe the administration's thought, of consolidating all of those activities. And I'm not saying that there aren't some things from AWW that might be able to be operated, like payroll and those types of things, but when it comes to getting the work done that they need to get done, that they are required to do, and all of us as citizens that are serviced by that infrastructure and hope to be for a long time, I think you want a very responsive, well-run, well-managed operation, which you have now. And I believe that changing it now, attempting to fix it, would break it. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Right, I heard you mention 2 or 3 times consolidation, and if you'd been at our work session on Friday, the discussion wasn't on consolidation, it was much more on centers of excellence. And I had, tried to have a discussion with Mr. Primo in the parking lot about what a center of excellence is, but there's many things in AWW that's probably run better than maybe in other departments in the municipality. And a center of excellence would be where AWW then would be the center of excellence and would be the department that then would bill other municipal departments for their work. So it's a little different than consolidation, and I just wanted to clear that up.
It would be nice to take that leadership and be able to get that throughout the system.
And that is the aim, and can we do it? I'm not sure, and we're spending a lot of time working on it as opposed to rushing into this. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, what's the wish of the body? Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to continue the public hearing to our meeting on April 26th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This item will appear on our meeting of April 26th. With some modifications?
Hopefully. Working on it.
Next item in front is item 13B, Ordinance 2011-25, an ordinance amending Municipal Code Sections 3.20.010 and 3.20.070 to implement a condition upon repeal of Anchorage Municipal Code Titles 31 and 32 pursuant to AO 2011-24. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward again. This one will be held over to the 26th also. Go ahead. Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, may I revise my previous motion regarding item 13A and make that postponement to May 24?
What was the date again, Mr. Flynn?
May 24th.
May 24th, 2011. Is there any objection to that? Madam Clerk, please set that public hearing on May 24th, 2011.
And then the same for item 13B, Mr. Chairman.
Please set the public hearing May 24th.
Second.
We'll move
Yes, he's doing it.
We'll move to continue the public hearing to May 24th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. This is to May 24th, 2011. Any objections? There are none. Okay, we're now down to item 14A. What's the wish of the body? Do you guys want to get something to eat now, or do you want to start public testimony now? Or do we need to go through your little issue?
We can do
Okay.
that first.
A couple things we need. It's a little housekeeping first. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing on item 14A, which is ordinance AO 2011-48, ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 26.10.030, utility rates and procedures to prescribe municipal utility. Thank you. Mr. Flynn, I'll call on you first, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we have discussed before this body many times, my wife and the law firm for which she works does substantial legal work for Cook Inlet Region Incorporated, which is the parent company of the Fire Island Wind Farm. And while it's not directly referenced in this legislation, it would most likely be a result of this legislation passing that the Assembly takes a greater role in that discussion. However, I'm advised by counsel that because this proposal is an ordinance of general application, it's premature to presume that it would have a conflict. Being married to somebody who's works for somebody who provides energy is not a conflict of interest in this legislation. However, were it to pass, and if you were to perhaps establish a committee to review an energy diversification proposal, such as the Fire Island Wind Farm, at that point, I would need to declare a conflict of interest and would most likely in that case be excused. But we do have to follow our process, and so I'll list the factors that should be used for determination. First off, I have no monetary gain that represented Administrative Ordinance, Assembly Ordinance 2011-48, which deals with utility rules and procedures. The ordinance is of general application, has no financial component. My wife is involved with a law firm that represents SERI. If a SERI-related project comes before the Assembly under this new legislation, I will ask to be excused from participation and will review and renew my disclosure. And finally, I do not wish to diminish the public trust, so I'm asking the body to make the ultimate call on whether I should participate in the deliberations on this ordinance.
Ms. Osiander.
Mr. Flynn, isn't it true, though, that SERI is actively in favor of and lobbying for passage of this ordinance?
I cannot answer your question, ma'am. I have not been contacted by anybody with SERI regarding this legislation. And I would support a vote of the body on this question, if so.
Deb, do you have the language down there? You normally keep it near you.
I do, but now I'm not sure what my position is, sir. I guess I'll just go ahead and make a motion that he does not have a substantial conflict of interest based on, I'm sorry, I think I need to say what it's based on. Okay.
He was just getting out there to help you.
Okay. Based on his comment that it's premature to say that the financial implications, what the financial implications could be, because the matter before us is related to a governance matter rather than a strictly financial matter. He has said that he has offered to us the information that his wife does do a substantial amount of work with SERI, but at this time there's no direct link on financial implication that's clearly visible. So at this time, I'd make a motion that he does not have a financial.
And I second, Mr. Chairman.
A significant financial.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Substantial financial.
Any other discussion from Assembly members? Please vote.
Is this yes, he has a conflict, no, he does not? Is that how it works?
You vote yes that he does not have a conflict of interest, or vote no that he does have a conflict of interest.
So yes means no.
Yes, absolutely. It's like elections. You ever run elections where people say, okay, no means yes and yes means no? Why did they do this to us? Ask the attorneys. We need one more person to vote.
I'll vote twice if he needs to.
No, this is not Cook County in Illinois. Thank you. You do not have a conflict of interest on this matter. So why don't we take our regular scheduled dinner break, and then when we come back, we'll move into public testimony on item 14A. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Media will join with us and move back a bit. Thank you. We're now on item 14A, public hearing, ordinance AO 2011-48, and ordinance in the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code section 26.10.030, utility rates, rules and utility rules and procedures to prescribe municipal utility rules and procedures applicable to the operation and management of the municipal light and power utility. Public hearing on this item is now open. Public hearings. No. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record, and spell your last name. Now, if you want to do that, come on forward. We're going to get this public hearing started. We have another issue. We have a lot of kids here on. We need to get this one done.
Well,
welcome to the meeting, sir.
It's all become ceremony and ritual, and but somehow we have to try to participate in our government. I raised for a point of inquiry the fact I'd like to see Mr. Posey give a synopsis of his position, and I'd also like to see Fire Island and the Siri people before I, as a citizen, make my decision. That's why I raised the point of inquiry. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I come here tonight. I continue to be concerned that we're not going where we should be going, that we're dealing with old mindsets. Some of those old mindsets are very special in Alaska. It's my daddy was here first before his daddy, and therefore I should have this position, and my friends have this money, and therefore we should channel the funding here. And I've never seen such questionable thinking and decision-making. What I would like to see happen is Siri would put in the wind farm. We would oversee the construction as well as all the data. I don't want them to own the wind farm for any long period of time, perhaps 5 years. Those people who have debt loaded my current utility system so that they can feed off the capitalization of that, let them hold their current status. But then I'd like to take the wind farm on Fire Island and turn Fire Island into a world-renowned and recognized tidal water research center, cold weather, floating turbines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, I'd like to have an annual lottery for 1,000 people in Anchorage who could perhaps buy a ticket and get their utilities free for a year. That would generate a lot of revenue. It would also generate a heightened sense of awareness of energy. We have to move in multiple sectors, ladies and gentlemen. We are no longer going to do business as usual. I, as one American, am no longer going to sustain and put up with those people who want to own the energy that will put my family in risk. It is time for a revolution if we continue that mindset. I'm done. I'm done with the foolishness of those people who want to greed and feed and subjugate our children. The pact was that we were supposed to be a more free people. That's why we have families and children. No one said here, oh, you got to go debt load at Wall Street and bail them out, and you got to go belong to the city and get fined for mandatory automobile insurance. No one said you couldn't afford to pay utilities, and this has just gone nutty. And it appears to me from my many years of watching energy that if we do an annual allocation of energy per person per dwelling, it will demand and bring about accountability in all sectors. And Anchorage, Alaska is really Alaska, and you folks as a body have an opportunity to set the trend in a new direction in the way we look at energy, the way we own it, generate it, and distribute it. And I guess my time is up on here. It seems a little long-winded, but I can't tell. I'm probably a mental mindset here, but we need to have some meetings. This popcorn moment of 1 day or 2 hours, even our senators do that. They come in, they spend 2 hours, and there we go.
There you go, sir.
Yeah,
thank you.
Dysfunctional fraction.
Ms. Osman, do you have a question, ma'am?
No, sir, it's left from before. Excuse me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am. Please pronounce and spell your last name for us.
Suzanne Gibson, Gibson.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Gibson. I'm the Senior Director of Energy Development for Siri, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and talk to you. It is unfortunate that the Mayor is unavailable to hear these comments tonight because I was hoping to address the Assembly as well as the Mayor. But Siri comes before you tonight in support of Ordinance Number 2011-48 to exercise your authority over the operations and management of MLMP. We appreciate the fact that the Assembly is concerned about energy supplies in South Central Alaska, and we see this action tonight as a further expression of that concern. SERI has attempted without success for well over a year to engage MLMP staff in good faith negotiations related to power sales from Fire Island. We believe that we have responded in a timely fashion to every request for information that has been forthcoming. SERI has worked cooperatively with Railbelt Utilities to conduct multiple technical studies. As the interconnecting utility, Chugach Electric has taken the lead with these efforts by combining internal expertise with local technical consultants and the United States National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Each study builds on the one before it, and it grows in complexity. But in every instance, the studies conclude that there is no technical or reliability issue which cannot be economically resolved. Kodiak Electric is an excellent example of how wind can successfully be integrated into a small electrical grid, and we note that Golden Valley now plans to construct a 24-megawatt wind project. There is also a good business case for Fire Island. There is no debate that domestically produced natural gas is in steep decline. There is also no debate that the future price of natural gas, while unknown, is rising. Fire Island is capable of delivering clean, renewable, reliable, fixed-price power for the next quarter century. Studies show that there is essentially no economic impact to utility customers for choosing wind over natural gas. This does not mean that there is no benefit. The benefits include energy resource diversification, environmentally responsible energy development, new tax revenue for the municipality, hundreds of construction jobs, several long-term, permanent, high-wage jobs, and expanded electric grid infrastructure, and progress towards maintaining energy independence. Additionally, successful completion of this project sends the message that there is room and desire for private funding to help provide energy solutions and economic stimulus to our community.
Finish up, ma'am.
The Fire Island Wind Project is both technically and economically viable. However, there is no clear path forward for any proposed project, be it wind, tidal, geothermal, or otherwise, if such project is proposed by an independent power producer like SERI. We have attempted to work with MLMP, but feel our efforts have been met with strong institutional resistance. The process for commercial negotiations between an independent power producer and the municipality is broken. There is no objective process to follow and no clear chain of command. Left unresolved, this will inevitably lead to missed opportunities, the price of which will be borne by the residents of Anchorage and the state of Alaska. We stand ready to work with the Assembly and their negotiating team should that be the outcome of these debates. Whether we can reach an accord with the project as currently proposed at this late hour remains to be seen. Regardless of the outcome, we appreciate the Assembly's leadership and efforts and support state energy policy, and we continue to strongly believe that the Fire Island Wind Project is a prudent choice for our community based on sound economics and good public policy.
Thank you. Ms. Osiander, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
So, Debbie, you weren't in there. Jennifer? You appeared again.
Yes.
It must like you.
I was wondering, do you need to get a utility certificate with the RCA as an independent power producer?
Assembly President Johnson, no, actually, we are going to be a wholesale power provider to the certificated utilities. Because we're not going to be serving load directly, we do not have to get a CPCN.
And my other question is, we had a work session, and you gave us a very great presentation last summer. Has the scope and the proposal changed a lot since the Assembly last saw what you were building and what you were suggesting?
The proposal has changed several times since last summer, mostly as a result of negotiations with Chugach Electric. We don't discriminate between the utilities that we're going to provide this energy to, so for each
progressive step that we've made with Chugach. We have reciprocated by showing ML&P those negotiated terms. One of the things that has changed since last year is that we heard a lot of consternation about the size of the project and the utility's ability to integrate the project, and so we have offered to phase in the project, and the first phase of the project will be about 35 megawatts, which is a third smaller than what we had originally proposed, and we're doing that for the ease of integration for the utilities.
And so, I'm gathering that it's changed considerably. In your discussions, are you still backing? Are you still having a redundancy, so it's not a variable power, or is it? I know at one point you were actually going to have your own gas driven, so that the variability would not be an issue. Is that still the case?
Well, by the nature of the product, wind energy is intermittent and it fluctuates in accordance with how the wind is blowing. We have proposed various things to the utilities, which included seeking funding together for a battery, which would enable us to firm up the wind power that's produced, as well as serve as a resource for the existing grid. And that's something that we offered to work with the utilities on, and we brought a technology provider to Anchorage to talk about the battery and explain how it would work and talk about what it would cost. But as of yet, that's not something that either ML&P or Chugach showed much desire for.
And in your discussions, are you still, I'm still going back to the last time I saw the proposal, and you had actually set in a price for kilowatt hour, I think it was around 10 cents. And it was over, was it 20 years?
It's a 25-year contract.
25 years that you were are you still doing that long term? Are you locking it in at a price, or is it more variable? Or
no, the price of power from Fire Island Wind is fixed. You'll know on day one what your price is going to be in year one, and you'll know on day one what your price is going to be in year 25. And that power price starts right now. What's been offered is $87.55 per megawatt hour, so 8.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and that includes the price of operations and maintenance, not just the cost of energy, which is sort of a price that gets thrown around a lot as a comparison to our project.
Thank you.
Chris.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the additional feedback in our email exchanges earlier. And just to follow up on it's my understanding that the real challenge is the variability that you referenced, and the integration is a big deal. And downsize of the project from 50 megawatts down to 35 addresses that in some respects. But when you talk about the battery component, to basically better integrate that into the system, because with gas-fired generation, it's my understanding, Chugach and ML&P, certainly that the gas, it comes in a steady state condition, and they have to do that nomination on a daily basis. So if you can't predict the wind there, then they're stuck, if you will, with a gas that a producer wants to sell them. And I guess how is a cost component for that battery? Have you looked at how is that additive to the 8.7 cents a kilowatt hour, or the basically integration component?
The battery would be in addition to the 8.7 cents, but it wouldn't be there just to serve the needs of the wind project. The wind project can be successfully integrated using the resources that are available in the system right now. It's true that utilities have to nominate their gas 24 hours in advance, but it's not true that they have precise clarity on what their requirements are 24 hours in advance. Every time someone turns on a light, the requirement changes. Every time somebody turns off a light, the requirement changes. So because they're not able to predict precisely or control what we as consumers do, they are necessarily following load all of the time. And Fire Island will sometimes increase their need to respond to changes in the system load, and sometimes it will offset it and make it less impactful.
Okay. And just to follow up, MLMP isn't the only show in town, so I was kind of curious are you negotiating also with the MEA and Golden Valley and Homer Electric as well as Chugach and MLMP?
Well, we have spoken at length to Golden Valley, and as most of you are probably aware, they've done some research on developing their own project, and they have determined that they can successfully integrate a 24-megawatt project into their own system, and they're moving forward on constructing their own project. MEA is sort of in a different boat because they're not a generator, and so they are a wholesale power purchaser from Chugach Electric, and we are in negotiations with Chugach Electric. We have met with them regularly. We have exchanged many term sheets. I have a file about this thick of term sheets that I've received back and forth from Chugach Electric. I have one letter that I received from MLMP which states that it's basically a policy statement, and it says that the things in that letter are not negotiable.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, just a quick statement for everybody except Ms. Gibson. While I appreciate the comments about Fire Island, this legislation is not about Fire Island. This legislation is about how the Assembly interacts in the negotiation over independent power producers and power purchase agreements. So if you're intending to come talk to us about Fire Island, you can sit down and wait until we actually get to that. Thank you.
Mr. Honeman.
Well, and with that caveat, I guess I needed to check and see, is there plans at Fire Island, should this thing come to fruition, the transmission lines are out to the area, are there plans for other alternative generation for power, such as tidal power, or anything else on the table out there for the future?
There is a project that's proposed on the west side of Fire Island. It's not a SERI project, but it's one that we would certainly cooperate with that project developer, and they would be able to transmit that power over that same power line. The project is likely, it just would not be possible for it to go forward if Fire Island doesn't go forward because it's not large enough to justify a transmission line from Fire Island over to Chugach and MLMP's International Station. But we're definitely working with them and hopeful that they'll be able to get their project built as well.
Ms. Osiander, yes, you're finally to the top of the pile.
Thank you. I'm a little bit, concerned when I heard your response on the Golden Valley and the MEA, particularly since the MEA board has put a very high priority within the last year on trying to create a capability for generation of power, and they're planning a major generation project in the northern part of the municipality. Could you clarify what your contact with them has been?
Matanuska Electric has a wholesale power agreement with Chugach Electric through 2014, and the power from Fire Island is scheduled to come online in October of 2012. So there's a gap between the time that they are able to purchase power on their own behalf and the time that the project comes online. So we've been working with Chugach Electric, who through their purchase of power from Fire Island will be selling some of the power to MEA, and we've been working to try to figure out if there's a contractual way that we can begin a contract with MEA once their contract expires with Chugach and they've built natural gas-fired power to help regulate their allocation of Fire Island from the...
Okay, so basically you're under a time crunch. You need the contracts in place prior to the time that MEA can actually contract with anyone for generation. Is that
Yes.
what you're... Okay.
We definitely need the contract in place, and in fact, the project will be online before they're capable of purchasing power.
Understood.
Is that all, Debbie?
Yep.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Suzanne. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the clerk and spell your last name, please. I know it gets boring. I don't ask it for no reason. It's just that we're doing minutes. We have to be able to get your name down correctly, sir.
Good evening. My name is Steve Cleary, C-L-E-A-R-Y. I'm the Renewable Energy Advocate for the Alaska Public Interest Research Group, ACPERG, and I'm here tonight to voice my organization's support for this ordinance. We too believe, as the ordinance states, that it is in the public interest to support diversification of the energy supply. And we think this will give the Assembly the tools to negotiate agreements such as, for an example, Fire Island Wind Project and other renewable projects. My wife and my son and I are MLNP customers. We really appreciate the power that comes to our house, particularly the well-managed, inexpensive, relatively inexpensive power that MLNP provides. They've done a good job with investments in the past, such as the Beluga River gas field, but and I appreciate their concerns about not wanting to do anything that would raise prices for consumers. But the fact is that doing nothing will raise prices. We're overly reliant on natural gas, and we need some diversity in our electricity supply. So I'm here tonight to speak in favor of this ordinance, and as well to thank you for your unanimous support and resolution form back in February of the Fire Island Wind Project. And we think this will be a way to move projects such as Fire Island forward. Thank you.
Questions from Assembly members? Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Take your windmill with you. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, council members. My name is Tom Lakosh. That's Lakosh. I come to speak in support of the bill, and I think it's essential in this particular instance at this particular time due to the not only to uphold the renewable energy policy of the city, the board of the MLNP, the state, the governors, several governors, the legislature, but also for energy security and safety of our citizens. We need that extra power line corridor to Fire Island, if not through Fire Island. It's been in the Riga plan. It's a necessary additional route that makes us less susceptible to power failure from either the southern end or northern intertie. It's always, we recognize, as Mr. Pozies wanted to tell us, that we have a weak infrastructure. This does nothing but strengthen that infrastructure. And we need to go forward as a matter of safety and security for the citizens of Anchorage, and as a matter of policy on how we move through to the future. I suspect that we sorely need a person with experience that looks to the future on how to most cheaply integrate our renewable resources, which we need to isolate ourselves from this $120 a barrel plus world. We have the duty to our citizens to secure our immediate, our acute energy needs and our long-term energy needs. It is clear that although we have been served well as a rural or small municipal co-op to this point, we need somebody with vision to the future, like somebody who has dealt with the 30% renewable base in Portugal or Spain or Denmark and can integrate our power like Kodiak and Fairbanks at less than 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And it is mainly a management problem, and with some, backup stuff, yes, but it is primarily, as was told to you, such a small percentage of this fluctuating daily load that it could be easily integrated with the right management, and that's why you first have to pass this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Questions from Assembly members? There don't appear to be any. Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. It's on 2011-48.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Carl Straley. That's S-T-R-A-I-L-E-Y, and I'm the Energy Coordinator for the Alaska Center for the Environment. And the Alaska Center for the Environment, if you don't know, is a local grassroots environmental group who advocates for sustainable policy on behalf of over 6,000 Alaskans, our largest population base being in Anchorage. And I'm here to speak to you tonight in support of this ordinance. I applaud your efforts in creating this vehicle for really looking at the long-term energy picture for Anchorage and providing for a vehicle to develop a renewable energy plan for integrating these stably priced clean energy resources that can bring us into the future as gas supplies and our fossil fuel prices are uncertain and creating problems for us and an energy crisis for Anchorage and the entire oil belt. So, whoops. So, again, we're very supportive of this ordinance. Thank you very much for taking these proactive steps in bringing the city to a long-term energy vision that incorporates renewable energy, and I'll leave it at that.
There are no questions, sir. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? She was going to run you over, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
My name is Don Rankel, Sr., R-E-N-K-E-L. I've been up here since 1968. I've been listening to a number of points here, and there's still a few things I haven't heard come up yet. We have a number of dams up here, especially in the southeast portion of the state. There's been a lot of talk about various constructions surviving earthquakes. Of course, we have an earthquake-prone state all over the place. One of the points I've understood is that when you have a construction system set up where if you have an earthquake, such as, heaven forbid, Japan has had, it takes the entire system offline. You have a major break in a dam or hydro project, it wipes out the whole system. You can't bring part of it back online. You take out a gas line, you lose the entire system. As was already found out in California, if you lose a half a dozen windmills out of, say, a couple dozen, you can still bring the system back online while you repair the rest of it and bring it back up to strength. My suggestion is that if Alaska is going to be on the cutting edge of technology and they actually are going to be a leader as one of the handful of the states who are operating currently in the black, I suggest you put some money into this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no questions. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks. I'm going to lower this down a little bit. I'm Ilona, I-L-O-N-A-F-A-R-R.
Excuse me. Come take a seat for a second. We're going to get to you, I promise. You don't need to stand there. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
What I wanted to do is say I'm actually in favor of the ordinance because I think diversification is very important, but I have some real concerns about wind energy. And my concerns are efficiency, lack of it. They're only between 2 and 30% efficient. They're totally unreliable. And if you look at statistics, and I've done a lot of research over the last couple of days to try and figure out if this would be something good for Alaska, because I'm in favor of green energy, or whether it would be something bad. And most of these projects, they're actually closing them down over many parts of Europe because they're so inefficient and because they are so expensive. Because with the wind mills, you still have to have the infrastructure, you still have to have backup because there's no way to store the energy because the wind sometimes blows and sometimes doesn't blow. And so if you actually look at the statistics, they say that the wind energy is about 3.6 times more costly than regular coal or gas-based products. In some studies, it was 88% more expensive. Also, because these windmills happen to be heavily subsidized, especially in Europe, that has brought down the cost, supposedly, but once the subsidies go away, you have a lot of costs associated with windmills. For instance, most windmills you have to be 2 miles away, and part of this is because of blade shear, because of icing. There's heavy maintenance costs because of bugs. A lot of these windmills, there's an average of 10,000 birds and bats that are killed killed by these windmills. They create drought conditions downwind. There's problems with burning, and there's accident rates. There's 104 accidents on average per month with these wind farms as opposed to nuclear, which actually there's been no deaths in the United States associated with nuclear energy, whereas there's been 35 deaths associated with these wind farms. I'm extremely concerned about us spending a lot of money on these windmills. While I am in favor of green energy, hydroelectric, tidal pulse energy, geothermal, there's a lot of other energies that I think that are a lot more cost-effective and efficient and would be a lot better for a community, and I have real concerns about this wind power. So I would suggest when the municipality actually chooses to invest in this, that they actually look at the facts and statistics, what's going on in Europe, what's going on in Scotland, and really investigate this and see whether this is something we really want to do, because the last thing I want to do is see the costs for myself and my children go up and our environment be changed because of these wind energy projects. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. There are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. See, we got to you.
Sorry about my lateness. My name is Marina Haynes, and as a cab driver here in Anchorage, I would like to testify that I support the efforts of SERI trying to do the wind power out there on Fire Island. Since age 11, I came to this land, and it's not my land. It is the Athabascan people that have lived here before me. And what I'm testifying for is that I support it because I see that it is a good step in the right direction into alternative energy, and that's what we must strive for here in the South Central area. The whales that are out there, the beluga whales, and I know that's another touchy subject, but we need to look at things that are not going to hurt the environment so much. I have traveled through, I think it was Wyoming, when my husband bought a truck in Wisconsin and we were bringing it back. For the first time I got to travel through states that have the big wind-powered energy, and it was called Judas Gap. Upon approaching it, it's very, very, very tall. I do not think that this project is going to be as tall as that one, but we do need to look at other alternatives, even the geothermal energy, because it would be smart not to put your eggs just in one basket. It would be smart to cooperate in partnership with somebody that wants to, help so that you don't have to foot all the bill. That's what I'm trying to say. But, and so please take another consideration into this. Thank you very much.
There are no questions, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify on this issue, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing seen no one, public testimony is closed. Votes with the body, Mr. Starr.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to second, Mr. Starr.
Well, I appreciate those that came down, and it is sometimes awkward to understand what government's all about here. And what we're actually trying to do is get a seat at the table, meaning this assembly, in the discussions that are taking place. There's a need, an identified need to engage what we're seeing in energy shortfalls, in how we diversify, how we become better stewards of our land. That's a complicated discussion. There's a lot of topics that come into that. As they specifically relate to this ordinance in front of us, the statement is made that we're exercising our charter obligation, our responsibility over this utility ultimately falls with us. We're empowered and required by chapter, actually in our charter, section 16, that prescribes to us to come up with a process of evaluation and decision-making as it relates to the operation of this utility. That's empowered by charter. The actual language specifies, and again, this is where it gets ugly in government, the code language is being modified by this ordinance in Code Section 26 of the operation of that utility to allow us basically the Assembly, to form a committee for discussion purposes of these very options, the diversification options, of which SERI is a part of those discussions. But it could be diversification into hydro. It could be, as one woman said, into other types of tidal energies. So what we need to do first is establish the rules of engagement, and that's what I hope that we do. We need a fair and deliberative outcome, and I just urge approval of this policy statement that says this Assembly shall prescribe those rules of engagement. That's why I moved it forward, and I think it's an appropriate step, and it demonstrates the leadership of this body to do so. So thanks.
Mr. Birch, sir.
Well, I speak in opposition to this ordinance. It says the Assembly, in its sole discretion, finds that the public interest will be served. The chair shall appoint a negotiations committee chaired by a member of the Assembly to further explore and facilitate terms and conditions of the agreement for approval by the Assembly. And I guess I just, that's not our role. Our role is, I see us, we review budgets, we review contracts when they're complete. And I'm troubled by the idea of immersing Assembly members in the negotiations with, and they're very complex negotiations, I would add, as we certainly understand through the public discussion and discourse we've had. So I think it's well intended, but I think that we need to recognize that the Assembly's role is not to be in the negotiations business on these agreements, and will be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall, sir.
I end up in a bit of a tough spot. What I would like to move is to make a motion to hold this over, because I'd like to see some wordsmithing occur within the language.
Second.
Jeez. Is there a third, fourth? Ernie, go ahead. When do I hold it over to, sir?
I would let it be at your discretion. I would like it to be no more than 2 weeks for the 26th.
Not the 26th. Well, okay, let's put on the 26th. There's ways we can work around the agenda. Do you want to debate it? Do you want to discuss why, Ernie?
I'm falling someplace between where Mr. Birch and Mr. Starr is. I'm in real agreement with what Mr. Starr is saying, and I think that there's a place for us to be involved in these discussions. But I have the problem that, to a degree, I worried the way that Mr. Birch is, that we would actually, with this, possibly end up in the actual negotiation of the contract. And I just have a question if that's exactly where we need to be. So I'd like to see a way to wordsmith it. I think there's a real part for us to play in this, but I'd like to see that defined very clearly.
Just on the issue of postponing until 4/26, Paul, do you have any comments on that, or will we get back to the original?
We'll get back to the original.
Okay. Debbie, do you have anything on postponing?
I just want to emphasize Mr. Hall's comments, because that's exactly what concerns me. I think if you read this, there could be the assumption made that why even bother going to the utility, just go to the Assembly and try to negotiate it. And frankly, I don't have the expertise in this area to do a good job, but I think it is very appropriate for us to set a policy statement and a direction. The first part of this, I think, is excellent. I continue to support the resolution we passed. I think it's important to talk about diversification. So I am going to enthusiastically urge support for the postponement for just a little more tweaking. Thank you.
Mr. Starr, on the question of postponement.
Yeah, I'm not really in favor of it. I'm going to vote no. I think it's ultimately, where we view this, and we've already seen a legal dispute occur at our last work session. I call it dispute because I don't think it'll ever be resolved from one lawyer to another, what the code language or the charter language actually specifies in 16. And I think that's where we all have the obligation as Assembly members to really study that. So if this postponement passes, I think we really need to come amongst ourselves what the charter tells us to do in 16. And I think it specifically reserves the right, this is an important entity, an important public entity, much like AWW is, that this public utility, the charter writers, I think, specified that we were supposed to be involved in this, and I think that's what we want to do. And so I don't want to come back on the 26th and then pick it up where we have to engage the legal debate that's likely to follow as well for more delay and more pontification. We need to get clarity from that, and I'm going to vote no on a postponement. If it passes, then I also hope that the legal ease can be part of that deliberation between now and then.
Paul, do you have anything on the motion to postpone?
Yeah, I was going to hold off because I think when we go back on the 26th, there might be a chance to ring in. I'm with Mr. Starr on this one wholeheartedly. I think that we've certainly got the information in front of us, and there's disputing. I think what's telling most is that, we had testimony that between two different entities, CEA and ML&P, there's a stack of yay on some negotiation issues and one piece of paper from ML&P, and I'm concerned greatly from that, and I do believe it would be no different than the committees that we all serve and chair, each of us, that may or may not make a recommendation to the body once we hear information and testimony. So I urge that we continue on and move the motion, but I also am not in deference to perhaps getting it right the first time around, so I'm in a quandary. I don't know how I'll vote until I push the button. Thanks.
Debbie, do you have anything else to say on the motion to postpone?
I'm sorry, no, I should have withdrawn that.
Madam Clerk, I'm going to bring it up for vote. Please vote a yes will postpone it, a no will not. That item is postponed till the 26th. Next item in front of us is item 14B, Assembly Memorandum AM 193, 2011, Employee Relations Board appointment, William J. Evans. Public hearing, this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion from Assembly members. Please vote.
You got to vote.
That was approved by the body. Next item in front is item 14C. Ordinance 2011-34, an ordinance amending the zoning map providing for the rezoning of approximately 4.3 acres from R1 single-family residential district to PLI, Public Lands Institution. Public hearing, this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. If there's any kids here, and I think there may be some, come on forward first. Because I'm told you have school tomorrow, somebody told me.
No?
If not, then it's open to everybody. Come on forward and testify if you want.
My name is Dan Bowles, B-O-L-L-E-S. I represent the owners, Jan and Fred Wolfley, on this. And I was prepared to come and ask you what you felt, what the amendment to the conditional use of the existing large animal, domestic animal facility meant, but then was quite surprised to see that the condition here is differed from the planning and zoning condition, that this ordinance shall become effective upon application for a large domestic animal facility, the conditional use. There's quite a bit of difference. In 1982, the Assembly approved PLI from R1 for the northern 5 acres of this. The southern 5 acres were not owned, but were occupied by the Wolfleys and used for the facility. Upon obtaining ownership of that property now, and then coming forward, they have sought to rezone it to PLI as the northern 5 acres was done, Lot 1. But we've been plagued by a number of things here. Following unanimous approval by P&Z September 13th, and a resolution stating that, as I said previously, that they obtained an amendment to the conditional use for a large domestic animal facility on Lot 1 to include Lot 32. On On October 27th, the Planning Department issued a municipal complaint of code violation against them. Blindsided them. Now we come here today expecting one thing, and we're blindsided again. We would like to see it go back to what the P&Z approved and have you circulate what you mean by amending the conditional use. Because a brand new conditional use for that facility, municipal cost is $8,800. Since wetlands is involved, an additional $8,800 will impact this property in municipal fees. $17,600 just to get it through P&Z again. The Wolfleys are not rich people. It's taken them a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of hard work and money to get to where they are today. And that $17,600 does not include their consultants' fees that they're going to have to pay out. That would be an additional $15,000 or so. So we would ask that you please go back to the P&Z language, and we would ask that you please identify that it is a minor amendment to the de facto conditional use approved by the Assembly in 1982.
Thank you. Ms. Ostander.
Actually, you hit on my big concern, too. The large animal ordinance allows such a facility as on PLI as a permitted use. So do you know where this conditional use permit, where that came from? I'll ask planning staff after the public hearing, but I was surprised to see that, too.
Well, after my 8 years with Title 21 here, the rewrite, it is listed as conditional use in the proposed rewrite.
But currently, it is not.
You are correct.
Okay, thanks. I'll ask Mr. Weaver.
Hello, I'm Elaine Miller. I've never been here before, just letting you know. And I would like to support the PL1 zoning with no additional encumbrance to the wolves. I know all of you care about children desperately. I know that you want our children to do well. When you encumber the chances of children riding and making it so cost prohibitive, you shut out some of those children that have the ability to stay out of trouble. A lot of kids, because they're involved in horses, do not get in trouble. They don't have time to get in trouble. Horses take a lot of effort and a lot of work. And so they don't have that ability. Some children are shy, and that allows them to kind of put themselves forward and be in control and feel special. And from my personal ability, as a child, I had a horse, and I actually stayed out of trouble. I didn't have any time to do but my horse. But as I became ill with cancer, I was saying to myself, oh my gosh, what do I really want to do again before I die? And I said, I really want to go back and do a horse again. And I really hope all of you realize that everybody has their own personal story about why they want to ride, why they love their horse, what opportunities it allows our children to have. And when you make it so hard for people to do that, it's not fair. I'm sorry, it's just not fair. And they are wonderful people, and they're right. They don't have a ton of money. They are wonderful people that share their property for all of us to have our wonderful experiences. So please think hard about how much you would like to shut out children that have the ability to love something for whatever reason and stay out of trouble. I think it's a really good thing to keep in mind when you start adding so much prohibitive cost that people just can't do it. So thank you very much, and I've never done this before.
Good evening. Through the chair, I am Ryan Stencel, STENCEL, Operations Manager for the Anchorage Soil and Water Conservation District. Standing with me is Brad Melisick, engineer at Dow HKM, who does the district's engineering work. As you've seen in your packets, this rezone was unanimously supported by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and after tonight's testimony, you'll understand why. This isn't a hypothetical rezone. This is a proven operation that is a keystone of the Anchorage equestrian community and supports our community in many different ways, as you'll hear tonight. FRJ works closely with the district and is in compliance with the conservation plan as implemented by the Large Animal Ordinance. In fact, FRJ meets or exceeds all requirements of the Large Animal Ordinance and other state and municipal regulations. FRJ honestly is one of the best managed equestrian properties in the municipality and demands high maintenance standards of their boarders. They are the standard we can look to, and they've been in operation for almost 40 years. FRJ has always had its animal control license until this last year when the municipality mandated a rezone prior to the issuance of future animal control permits. This rezone will allow FRJ to become compliant with municipal code again. The only outstanding issue is that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to the Assembly that FRJ's de facto conditional use permit on the north property be amended to also include the southern property. Page 130 of your packet is a copy of the letter imposing the de facto conditional use on the northern property. As you can see, there are no conditions to amend. The de facto conditional use on the north property is how it was addressed at the time. However, by current code, FRJ does not exceed the limits that would trigger a conditional use permit. Exceeding 8,000 square feet for a structure or exceeding the number of animals permitted per acre would trigger a CUP, neither of which FRJ even approaches. To impose a conditional use on this property would be arbitrary, treat this property differently than all others, and not follow current code. In closing, this rezone stands on its merits. This is an equestrian property the community and the municipality can be proud of, and with almost 40 years of history, it's proven. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from Assembly members? There don't appear to be any, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Lori Hackenberger, and I'm president of the Anchorage Horse Council. The Anchorage Horse Council manages your municipal equestrian facility and has since 1983. FRJ is a vital part of our center. A lot of the volunteers that maintain the 325-acre park over there, including the 5 miles of trail system, come from FRJ. They're just a big part of our community, and in order for our municipal equestrian event center, we're not a boarding facility, we're an event center. It's where everybody comes and puts on the horse shows, and I've provided you with the copies of the Alaska Equestrian News, and I just wanted you to kind of review our schedule to see how booked we are with 4-H camps, horse shows, clinics, and a big part of that comes from people at FRJ. And the passion that Fred and Jan have in keeping a boarding facility open for us, it's just a tremendous benefit from our facility. And in 2009, we have made leaps and bounds in our equestrian community. 2009, we sent a little gal out to compete at the World American Quarter Horse Show in Oklahoma City, and she brought us home a world championship. She started riding at places like FRJ, so it is extremely vital to us and very important to our municipal equestrian center to have Fred and Jan remain in place, and I would just really strongly urge the passing of this rezoning without the conditional use. That was also a big surprise to me. It is totally unnecessary to have that in this, so I'm open for questions, but I'm just asking for your support in this because we as a community need it, and we need to keep that municipal facility open.
Ms. Osander has a question, ma'am.
Is there a home on the property?
On the equestrian center property?
On this property, the specific lot, Lot 32, Section 9, is there a home?
No.
There's no one living there?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Honeman? My question, I guess, perhaps I should ask other speakers, in the event that the Wolfleys retire or this FBAR-J, are there community groups, equestrian groups that are willing to be, if this is redesignated to PLI, nonprofits, community groups that are willing to step up and
Yes, there are. Last year, we lost one of our biggest boarding facilities in South Anchorage. Huffman Horse Center closed. And we had to, there were 28 displaced horses. Those horses were absorbed by FBAR-J, people in the community. Some of them had to move out to the valley. And that's another thing that's very important. If a facility like FBAR-J closes, we have to deal with those horses being spread out through the community of South Anchorage. We have our large domestic animal ordinance in place. The horse community works very hard, and the Anchorage Horse Council works very hard to educate people that keep their horses in their backyard so that they're responsible neighbors. But we need to centralize our horses, and that's what an equestrian facility like Fred's does. It keeps them all in one place, so it's less problems for the community, and it's a total benefit for our kids.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
There are no other questions, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi. My name is Karen Erickson, E-R-I-C-K-S-O-N. I work for the Anchorage School District, and I've been a part of this community since 1960. My husband was born and raised here. I've had horses back in the 70s, married, had kids, and back basically having horses again. 3.5 years. I board my horse at FBAR-J, and also am a board member at Anchorage Horse Council. So I kind of see both sides of things in the community with horses and equestrian, both as a rider myself and as someone who takes part in community activities. Since being at FBAR-J, I didn't quite see myself getting involved in municipal ordinances and everything else. I was just basically, I'm to the point now in my stage of life that I'm in it to have fun. But also with the fun comes the responsibility of horse ownership. FBAR-J is a vital part of the community in the South Anchorage area where it's located at Lower and Elmore. Right across Elmore is Far North Bicentennial Park. Regular times throughout the year we go out and have trail cleanup. We take part in Winter Trails Days because we are, as a multi-trail user, equestrians, Ruth Arcand, 4-H groups, clubs, summer camps, working with the Anchorage School District. I work at Airport Heights Elementary. I've taken part in basically teaching kids in some of the 5th and 6th grade classes about horses because a lot of these rural kids have not ever seen horses. You know, they're reading stories that have to do with the educational curriculum, having to do with cowboys in the West and the reading curriculum. They don't even know what a saddle is, and what are they talking about when they're talking about a lariat. And so I've been actually asked to basically talk to some of the kids, and these are the same kids that come out with small groups and get a walk around, get to pet horses, see horses, and with FBAR-J and other small animal barns around the community, this is what these summer camps are all about. So when listening to some of the stuff we were talking about, Ms. Osander asked about the house being on the lower portion. This basic property that we're talking about is split into 2 separate areas, I guess. I don't know the technical term for it. The upper portion, the southern portion, or the northern portion, excuse me, is the Wolfley's home, and basically the stalls and paddock areas for the horses themselves. This lower section that's in question is the arena where we work our horses. We have kids come out. We have several members of the barns give lessons to horses that are people that have never seen horses before. So it's a vital part of this whole barn and its operations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
My name is Nancy Winiford, W-I-N-N-I-F-O-R-D. I'm a mom, and I'm a very grateful mom for F-J. When my daughter was 5, she had a dream, and that was to have a horse. My husband and I felt like it was important to live, to have that horse in a facility where we lived. So we priced houses in Anchorage that had horse facilities like a small barn or something like that, and they started at $500,000, which was over our heads. So we decided to move near F-J and board our horse there. And my daughter has learned so many things from the adults there. She's learned good trail habits. Fred and Jan have taught her lessons when she transgressed the rules, and they were very fair with her, and they helped her learn what was the right thing to do. She has poured her passions into her horse. This is not somebody that's going to hang around the malls and cause trouble. Also, it's my understanding that some of the neighbors, or at least one of the neighbors, is upset about the odor from the horse facility. You know, all of the houses that the people that were complaining live in were built after this facility was started. They all knew that there would be horses in the area, and I find it disingenuous to be opposed to something like that when you built your house. The other thing is, with the large trail system nearby, this is the perfect place for kids, and there are a number of kids and teenagers who have horses at F-J. My daughter's not alone. There are lots of them, and all of them are the kind of kids that you're not going to find hanging around the mall, stealing things, or getting pregnant before their time, or whatever, because they are busy with their horses. I am one grateful mom for F-J, and I'm hoping that you will go ahead and approve this.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Holloman has a question for you.
Well, actually, I think it's, Mr. Chairman, if I might indulge me just a minute, it seems we've got quite a few folks in the audience here. It would be appropriate to ask how many people here are in support or in attendance. How many people here are in support of this? Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's good. You get a visual. Anybody here in this meeting opposed? So you guys, thank you very much for standing up. We just got to stretch your legs, if nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you for the indulgence.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Good evening, Mary Youngers, Y-O-U-N-G-E-R-S. And my daughter, she's almost 12. We just started at F-J almost a year ago. And already she's been riding since she's 6. But as she's getting older, she finds that she really enjoys going there a lot more. And coming from the village of Kotzebue, she has a lot of relatives that basically don't have the opportunity that we have here. And so for her to talk to her relatives about it, and they come down and they visit, and we actually go to the barn and see the horses and show them around, and they are just excited. And so it's been a real important part of her life, which of course has become a very important part in our life. So really, they have become extended family to us. And so we really appreciate what F-J has done to not only my daughter, but as well to extended family that do come down from up north and visit. And so it's just another outlet that I'm grateful for, that it keeps her busy. And so I know that as she gets older, it's just become a lifetime commitment, and so as a parent and from the Native community, I really appreciate, again, what FRJ has done, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There are no questions. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Deanna Quinn, Quinn, and I wanted to urge you to approve the rezoning of Lot 32 as it is without the conditional use. Horses at FRJ have been a benefit to the community. The horses there economically affect the vets, farriers, tack shops, and feed stores in the area. You wouldn't believe what our budget is for horses. Anyways, we really appreciate the services that the professionals in our area offer, and if the horses were not able to stay because Lot 32, a disapproval of that would affect how the horses, if they could stay or not, would impact them negatively. The horses here have been a benefit to the kids. They've learned responsibility. They've had a chance to set some goals. I'm going to get to cry. It's very passionate to us. Set some goals, accomplish them, develop confidence and compassion. This particular piece of property has been special to us at a time. 2 years ago when we got our horse, we couldn't ride him. He wasn't trained to that point yet, so we finally could ride him, but on this particular property he hadn't developed the skills and training to venture out even within this piece of property. And I have a picture to share. I don't know if we could show it or not. This is my daughter riding a horse around their property with no fear on her trained horse. He's a good citizen. And just this past month, she's qualified for a national level virtual horse show. She has a chance to win the buckle, and she'll be showing him this summer as well. So please approve the rezoning.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming and testify.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks. All right, girls, get up here.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
My name is Chase Quinn, Quinn, and I was
Related to her?
Yeah, that's my mom. I was in the picture. I would just like to approve this property because, as my mom said, that's where we trained our horse, and it's beneficial to this property, and because on this property you have a family, and this family takes care of you like a family would. It's like a family outside of your family that you can always go to, and it's very nice to have them. And this property, it's just very important to us, and if we didn't have it, I'd have to put my horse somewhere out in the valley where I can only see him like once a week, maybe not even, and maybe like once every 2 weeks. And right now I see him like every single day for like 5 hours. I go there straight after school, and it keeps me out of trouble. And so I'd like this to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on, girls.
Hi, my name is Olivia Rolfe, R-O-L-F-E. I'm one of the kids from the FRJ, and like, it's all very important to us. I mean, I haven't gotten a lot of chances to ride my horse. Well, I have had the chances, but I haven't really had the confidence to do it. And with all of the people here at the FRJ and the kids here that are just surround me, they've given me confidence. And now, this summer, I plan to ride my horse and just just get a better relationship with her. And in the arena that we're talking about, that's where I would do it, because then it would be a chance for me to be one-on-one with her and get into it, and just all that stuff. And I know that it's very important to all the adults here. Like my mom, she comes out here every day, and she loves it there. This is her little sanctuary kind of thing. She loves it, and without the FRJ, we might not be able to keep her, and I know that's, I'm sure some of the cases for a lot of the other adults, and
they wouldn't want to have to lose their horses, because that's just their happy place a lot of the time to get away. And I know it is for a lot of us kids. It takes us a lot of the stress from the other things that go on, and it's just a happy place for us.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. You don't have to run away. You can come and testify. Whose parent is she? Bring her back.
My name is Stephanie Whittleford, Winniford, and I got my horse Autumn like 2 years ago, and she was like really wild and crazy and not that well trained, and most of the training, like a lot of the training that I did with her was down on that lot 32 in the arena and the round pen down there, and like now because of all that training I can ride her and show her and take her out on the trails without having to worry about her harming anybody or not having to worry about getting bucked off or having her do something bad. And because of all the stuff that I've learned from training her, I can go and help other people with their horses and help like train their horses a little bit and do stuff like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. It's easy. Take a deep breath and just talk to us.
I'm Philomena Shields, Shields. I'm a boarder at the barn. My horse's name is Desperado. We've known each other forever. We've grown up together. And if the FRJ is to go away, then so does my friendship with him. There's nowhere else in town that we can keep him and that I can see him every day. So I'd appreciate if you would pass this.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to us.
I belong to her. My name's Mary Shields, Shields. We share the horse she was speaking of. What she didn't tell you is all that she has learned over here at this FRJ with the responsibility and what's required to take care of the property and the horse. It's not just the horse, it's the property. And believe me, the Wolfleys are right on us about cleaning up after ourselves in every manner. It's a great place for these kids. And I don't know what else to say. It's just, these kids learn so much about life over there. And I know there are other places too that, you know, but FRJ is where we can be. This is where my daughter and I can be. And I really appreciate this. The Wolfleys provide that for us. Believe me, this is not a big money-making deal. You can't make money here in Alaska keeping horses on your property. They're just too expensive. And the Wolfleys help us be able to do this, keep a horse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anybody else wants to testify, please come forward.
Hi, my name's Marlene Fulton. It's Fulton. And as you can see, we're all very passionate about our animals. We spend tons of time. I rode, not including cleanup time, 50 hours last month, and I won my prize. But anyway, each and every one of us could get up and tell you our story about our relationship with our horse. If that will impact your decision, we'll each stand up here and do that. If you've heard enough, let us know. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'd be more than happy to flood you.
There's school tomorrow for some of these kids, isn't there?
It's, you know what, these kids have 30 moms. They can't get away with anything.
Good.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Christina Enix, E-N-E-I-X, and I'm going to just be brief because you have heard all the stories already. I hope that you guys pass this. I sent many of you an email last week regarding it. And my point being that please pass this without any kind of conditional use. The additional burden that it will cause to the Wolf-Lees is unjust, and as the current code shows, it's not warranted as well. So it would seem to be not adequate for this purpose. As was said before, this has been going on for a long time. It's a proven facility. It is very well organized and managed, and will continue for a very long time. And part of that long-term plan is having this PLI rezoning so that the property is in compliance and can continue with no issues. I really hope that you guys take that into consideration, that the Wolf-Lees have been very good stewards of this land for a very long time and have created an extremely deep connection with the community and has served a very good purpose. So I thank you. Is there any
Very
questions?
much. There are no questions. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Hello, I'm Sue Brosnahan, Brosnahan. I have been involved with the F-Bar-J Ranch since 1993, but the Wolf-Lees have been there for 40 years. You've heard multiple anecdotes about what the barn means to people, and so I am here to urge you to approve the zoning change without conditional use. The Wolf-Lees have maintained this property as much as they can. There is not a lot of money involved in this property. I call it the blue-collar barn, sorry. But you can tell what this property means to everybody that is involved there. If lots of money needs to be spent in order to get this property in compliance, this property is not going to be a horse facility any longer. The financial situation will not provide for that. So I urge you to withdraw the conditional use so that this property can continue to be what it is to everyone that you've heard here. The other thing I would like to add is one of the things that I think most of us enjoy about living in Anchorage is the wildness of Alaska. You don't have to leave your yard to see a moose. You can go out in Bicentennial Park and see a bear or a coyote. You can go in the middle of Anchorage and see horses riding on the trails. You don't have to drive an hour or two like you do in most other cities of this size. The F-Bar-J continues to provide that type of experience, not only for the people that use the facility, but for the people that use the trails and live in the area. For all the reasons you've heard tonight, please pass the zoning change without conditional use. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There are no questions. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. How many people still wish to testify so I can gauge where we're at? Okay. Thank you.
Name is Bob Prochnow, Prochnow. Come here tonight because I got a flyer in the mail about this. I happen to be one of the neighbors, actually probably the closest neighbor in the new houses that are there as I look at the map here. I came with concerns to learn a little bit of what's going on here, learned quite a bit tonight. My concerns were with a lot of the properties in the area that are closer there that have more problems than this. As I'm looking at it and seeing what's going on here and seeing the kids in the neighborhood, one of the families that's recently moved there had horses that they maintained there. They were always walking them around. It was great to see them. The kids walking through the neighborhoods were always great with the horses. As the closest house to the barns there, I'm not sure which neighbor had the nose that could smell them, but it's a lot better than mine. I love seeing them. I can actually hear the horses from my bedroom window, and it's great having them in the neighborhood. My concern was getting this flyer and not a whole lot of other information was with this rezoning that this is going to end up as a Pizza Hut or a gas station or what have you. But if they're maintaining it the way they are, I see it as a great asset in the neighborhood.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Honeman has a question.
Yep, sir, right here.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for coming down tonight, and I'll tell you why. No offense to anybody here that has a horse or stables at FRJ or actually uses this land. It's very important. I mean, what's impactful to me is that you're a neighbor, very close neighbor. You don't have basically a dog in this hunt. You don't have a horse. And you came down here as an interested citizen with some concerns, and you're basically testifying as a good neighbor, and should and would, and giving these comments, and it's really impactful. I just wanted to let you know that has not been lost on me. Thank you.
Believe me, I've got other concerns about other properties in the neighborhood.
As we all do.
And I'm going to probably end up coming back to learn a little bit more. But the horses, I love having them. I don't ride. I got a mother that did, and when she comes to town, going to be visiting again, she loves seeing them coming through the neighborhood.
Might be a few people out here might let her ride one.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. You're it?
I need a trash can. I have gum.
Sorry.
My name is Megan Tenge, Tenge. I am a nurse at Providence, and I've been a productive member of society for a very long time. I had a horse when I was younger, and public speaking is not my strong suit. I've already checked my pulse. It's in the 130s, and I'm sweating, and I've already cried 3 times. So anyways, I come here to tell you about how passionate we all are about our horses. Sorry.
How much for Kleenex there?
Can you tell?
For the next meeting, I'll get it there.
So anyways, I'll just go off my list. Like I said, I've owned a horse since 3rd grade, and I've stayed out of trouble. And I've had a horse at very small barns, and growing up, being a young kid with a horse, a lot of people think that, you're some snot-nosed kid or whatever. Well, anyways, I didn't have a good taste in my mouth about horse community. Well, now that I've gotten my career, I've gotten my degree, I love working with people, and I've come to this barn back in, I think it was September. And anyways, it's a wonderful community within a community. It's a family. And anyways, now I'm really going to get emotional. My horse colicked, and he damn near died back in October. And a whole bunch of people stepped in. I would say 5 to 10 people offering help. Deanna, one of the ones who's also crying, she stayed with me until about 3 a.m. And I really didn't think my horse was going to make it for a long time. Anyways, I had a lot of help and generosity there, and it was great. So we don't have real super professional horse shows here. I have one. But thank you.
We have extras.
Anyways, we don't have super showy horse shows here, but we have something called a virtual horse show, where we have a really nice arena in the south portion, the one that's up for rezoning, and that is where we film. And this recent month, I won first overall, and I also passed into the next level. And anyways, it's a great arena, and it's also where we store manure, and it's just, like Karen said, we store the horses up above and multiple things down below. So, anyways, I don't know if you guys have ever won anything. I didn't do a whole lot of school sports and horse showing, and horses were my deal, Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much. You could tell it's difficult for you to get up here and talk about your issue, and I'm very grateful for your horse. Yeah, checking that pulse. You did well. You did very well, and you spoke from the heart, and you gave us some information that I think was well noted. So thank you very much. And
it's the cleanest facility I've ever been at, so they do a great job of running it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
My name's Angela Morris, Morris. I've been, I've been a boarder at FRJ twice. I left initially because I wanted to go to a facility that had just some different options. I have actually returned. I have been at 3-4 different facilities in this city. FRJ is the cleanest, most well-run facility that's been available to us. And I guess that's the biggest thing that I want to make sure that you're aware of, is that they follow really great housekeeping, fine-keeping guidelines. So just as an awareness that is one of the biggest things that they do provide is a very well-run and clean facility that doesn't impact the neighborhood. The odors are at a minimum, as much as you can keep them as a minimum with large animals available. And, in comparison to smaller barns that are out there and even some of the larger barns, it's a very welcoming and appropriate facility that takes care of their animals very well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to testify? If you would come down to the front so we can move through faster. Anybody at all? Okay, is there anybody after her? Thank you. You're last, ma'am.
My name is Susie Miller. I don't think I have to spell Miller, do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay. M-I, like the beer, L-L-E-R.
Thank you.
Thank you. Winter in Alaska is the most difficult time to raise horses, but the people that do are incredibly conscientious about it. But also, summer, spring, and fall are also times for conscientious people to take care of their horses. They bond together, they share ideas, they share care. It's a very family sport for us. There are lots of sports in Anchorage. Riding is more and more limited as a sport. It's also limited as a family, people that care for the land and for their animals and each other. For many of us, primary overriding is taking care of our horses. When we're sick, when we have periods of recovery, we still go every day and we find great solace in our animals. They're big dogs. My daughter's 24, and she took care of our horse. He was 13 and now he's also 24. And she learned so much responsibility, I can't even say. When other kids were doing other things, she was at the barn, and she was scooping poop and scraping it off walls. Whatever it took, she was doing it because I wanted her to take care of her animal with responsibility. She now has spent 2 years at the Supreme Court, and she and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor talk about their childhoods with horses. And she has such pride about it, and you also hear from them, I can see that you took care of a horse. Those people who rode, she was from Arizona, and she rode all the time. I've been at all the facilities as well. When I lost the Huffman facility, I lost my riding teachers. Each facility has different purposes. I want to go back to FRJ now because I want the friendships and the ease, not the shows that my daughter was in. And there it is that kind of relationship. Excuse me, I'm very nervous. I know this is an odd thing to talk about, but my husband wrote a book. It's called The Last Alaskan, I cannot say it without help.
The last Alaskan barrel.
An Arctic oil extravaganza that never was. He's just getting known for this. He did design and build almost all the facilities in Prudhoe Bay, as well as, I'll say the last thing, president of many companies for ARCO over the years. They believe that if the oil companies knew then what they know today, they would have never come to Alaska. The return was very, very low. My point about this is that tract housings, so grown up over the last 15 years, we have to look at depletion, we have to look at decline, and we have to think that facilities like ours are so few, And people will also need less tracks. I know it's kind of sad to say that. But I would like to see this facility there for the next 20 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
There are no questions. Anybody else wish to testify? Anybody else? Okay. We're not going to the back rows. Come down front if you want to testify.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kyle Phillips. I do work at the FBRJ in my off time. I'll keep this real short. The section that's up for rezoning is a section where the dump trucks that haul off the not-so-pleasant part of horses. If a conditional permit was to be put on this, like it's been said previously with the money situation and everything else, you've seen a neighbor come up and say he lives close to the facility, he doesn't smell it. If this doesn't get rezoned the way we need it, then it's going to shut him down. So I'll say one last thing. This is Alaska and it's the last frontier, and please keep it that way.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify? You're going to be last.
My name is Elodie Clayton, C-L-A-Y-T-O-N. I've boarded at FRJ for 20 years. So I'm in a position to look back historically and see how they have maintained their land. They're good stewards of the land. It's an asset in the community. People walk by on the bike trail that's right in front of the property, and you see the little kids stop, and the adults, look, Mommy, horses. It's like there's enough vanishing in the world right now in the lower 48 with horses. Please think about investing in letting this rezoning take place without the conditional permit being a factor. It's an asset to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There are no questions. Anybody else wish to testify? Hearing and seeing no public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Ms. Osiander.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Osiander.
Move to amend by deleting Section 2.
Second.
And if I could speak to that?
Moved in second. Ms. Osiander, you have the floor.
The large domestic animal facilities or horse stables like this are permitted under certain conditions. They are allowed use, they're permitted use in PLI. If you look particularly in the Supplementary District Standards 2145.350, a large domestic animal facility in the PLI district may be considered as an accessory use to an equestrian arena. And my understanding is there is an equestrian arena there. This is a long-standing, very popular facility. If you look in your big packet, there's 23 pages of names of people who support the facility. They've already gone through vetting. If you look at the engineering report that's included, there doesn't seem to be any negative comment. I don't think that an additional conditional use permit hearing is necessary, and I also think under code it's not needed.
It's in my district, and I agree with you.
Thank
you. Any other discussion on this? Mr. Honeman.
Only that if you think that horses aren't very good odor, you ought to try hanging around a lot of hockey rinks and hockey players. I can guarantee the odor there is a little bit impactful, too. I support the
need a conditional use permit. Okay, please vote. This will simply get rid of Section 2. Yes, we'll get rid of it, and no, we'll not. That's gone. We have in front of us, though, the main motion, which is to approve 2011-34. Discussion from Assembly members. Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I want to say, and I don't want to take too long on it, but for everyone who came up and spoke, especially those of you who are a little emotional, and for the young folks who came up, you did a great job. Obviously something that's very passionate, that you're very passionate about, and you should never be nervous coming up and talking about that. It sometimes can be intimidating, I know, but you did a terrific job, and we're glad to hear you. We don't get to do often things that I think make a real, tangible, immediately felt impact on people's lives in a real positive way. This is one of those rare occasions, Mr. Chairman. This is very clearly the right thing to do. I think Ms. Osiander made exactly the right amendment, and let's get on with it.
He is our large animal expert.
Thank you.
Mr. Starr, sir.
I'm not going to put anybody from the municipality that enforces the zoning and the allowable uses of our community, but I think you just need to be aware that some of the stipulations in the statements that I see, and they're not conditions of use, but some of the understandings are that the conditions and the use currently isn't going to change drastically. And I would just caution that as you have the opportunity to expand, there are some friction points. I think it says in here that it's not a public use facility, and it's bad. You start to cause trouble when you put up no trespassing signs and restrict the use to a club and those kind of things. So the note of caution on the record is that, if you want the zoning enforcement folks to kind of stay away, don't do anything that's going to draw attention to them. I'm not asking them to look the other way, but we have a need to cohesively get together. So Ms. Osiander is mostly right, but be careful that you don't cross over the allowable uses now with your new PLI lands. And I don't want to lecture on that, but I'm actually happy to see R1 land be expanded back to what we see now for a larger lot use, and it'll be harder to go the other way. Trust me, I believe you'll see the PLI a very favorable thing. So thanks for coming down. It was very well presented and a lot of passion, and I'm happy to support it.
Ernie Hull, sir.
I'm very pleased to be in support of this. I've got a son that lives immediately adjacent to the property, been there about 2.5 years, and when they were looking at it, they had a concern because of the location next to the horses. But the reality is, in 2.5 years of being there, they've really come to love having them there. Never any distraction, never any odor. I mean, it's very well maintained. So congratulations to you on doing that.
Thank you. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the opportunity to talk to some of these folks during the break, and they were pretty antsy. I don't mean that in a negative way, but just waiting to see what would happen if we get to it and how things would go. And I think I talked to Frederick during the break. Could you stand up, you and your wife? Yeah. And I just want to say thank you for making so many people in this community so happy. You're welcome.
Any other comments from Assembly members? Frederick, is it as you want it to be read now? Is this what you want? I think I did go to some of those. I don't think Sandy was the only one that came to those meetings with you and my children. We remember those years, don't we? Take care. Please vote yes, we'll approve it, and no, will not.
Ms. Osiander?
Ms. Osiander? We're voting now. Is it on this issue? Okay. We're taking it 2 minutes at ease. If she needs to get this clarified, I don't want to have to move to reconsider it. Let's just give her the 2 minutes. We're ahead of time. And then we'll take up the vote. If we could. Ms. Osiander.
Thank you very much. The confusion was exactly where the arena is located, which portion of the lot. My understanding was it was on the same lot. This can all be taken care of with a recorded joint use agreement. So I'm going to put forth an amendment that says that this is
what line?
All right, well, the simplest thing would be, I guess, to put back Section 2 and say, the ordinance shall become effective upon a recorded joint use agreement between the lots. Mr. Wheeler?
Line 24 and 25?
Line 22. It would say, the zoning map amendment described in Section 1 above shall be subject to the following effective clause. There should be a recorded joint use agreement between the two lots.
Second.
Dennis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir, if you can repeat it.
The amendment would then, the document before us would then read, Section 2, as Ms. Osiander indicated, the zoning map amendments described in Section 1 shall be Section 1 above shall be subject to the following effective clause. This ordinance shall become effective upon a recorded joint use agreement between the lots.
Yes, sir. That's my motion.
Second.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
The sticking point of the conditional use was the added cost of that. Is there a cost associated with a joint use agreement?
It is significantly less than having a conditional use permit.
How significantly? What is the cost?
Is it zero or almost about? Mr. Weaver, do we know how much a joint use agreement?
Into the mic. Thank you. We got to get you on the record. They're coming back. They left. They thought we were done.
Mr. Chairman, it's probably less than $100. It has to be recorded in the recorder's office. It's on our phone, but it's not significant.
All right.
It's necessary. The other alternative is to do a Mr. Teshi clause saying
notwithstanding provisions of AMC. Yes, I'm familiar with that one. I've used it numerous times.
Legal doesn't like that, so this is simpler.
Oh, come on. Teshi used that on all sorts of stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
That's my only question.
Is there any debate on that item? Ask unanimous consent. See no objection. We've amended Section 2 as amended back into the document.
And I just want to caution the owners of this property. This doesn't mean that it's permissible to do a major expansion of what's going on now. Basically, you have a de facto conditional use agreement because it was in existence before the prior PLI. So just with that a clear understanding. Thank you.
Okay. Please vote on the amended document in front of us. Everybody voted. Thank you. See, it does pay to come down and testify. Thank you for being here.
You can stick around for the rest of the meeting if you want.
Next item in front of us is item 14D. Ordinance CO 2011-44, an ordinance authorizing disposal via sole source sale of a parcel comprising the west 77.5 feet of Lot 4, Block 41. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. What? Could you take it all outside? We've still got business to do. Thank you, unless you want to testify. Hearing saying no one, public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body? This is item 14D. Motion to approve is on the floor. Mr. Flynn.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll vote in favor of this. I don't recall this coming before the Downtown Community Council. I would have appreciated it being routed through them. I think they would have approved it, but just as a matter of courtesy, when we're going to do real estate disposals, it'd be useful to make sure the Community Council is on board. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any discussion from assembly members? If not, please vote. Items approved unanimously by the body. Next item in front of us, item 14E, ordinance AO 2011-45, an ordinance amending AO 2010-23, Section 3, to eliminate the sunset provision for Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 11.70. This is the transit signal prioritization priority project. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you.
You don't have a horse here, I take it?
No, I don't have a horse.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Bill Sosnowski, that's S-O-S-N-O-W-S-K-I. And dear Assembly members, I ask you to repeal this ordinance and not allow people mover to use traffic preemption devices. I base my position on the same facts that are on the Kittleson Technical Memorandum that it was the AIM was based on. Have you read the Kittleson report? It does explain the current system's problems and shortcomings, but some in technical details. The summary of that report is in the AIM, pointing to a glorious future, but not the problems that currently exist. My reasons are numerous. The current controllers are not capable of traffic signal priority. They can only preempt the signal, then omit side street, pedestrian crossings, and other vehicle movements because of the limited cycle length and the requirement that the main street stay coordinated. There is a proposal to add 55 more buses, which would increase the number of traffic signals that are preempted. Currently, the signals preempt both late and early buses. The bus emitters operate all the time, and there's no way to turn them off. Then the cost of the municipality is not addressed. Currently, there are over 1,000 detectors at $700 apiece. There's 270 program cards at $2,600 apiece. And 4 of the original 15 units installed on the buses have already burned out at a price of $1,000 apiece. Also, the labor costs are not addressed. Troubleshooting problems and making repairs can tie up a crew all day. A signal timing program has to be written into the controller for each intersection. Field adjustments have to be made. Maintenance costs are not budgeted. Most importantly, there's no staff for the maintenance of the system. There was an MOA Opticom bond-funded position for maintenance and operation. It's cut. There was a maintenance position originally funded by AFD. Cut. The signal operations position, he retired, it was left vacant, and then it was cut. The signal maintenance section has been reduced to the same staff levels as they were in 1984 when there were only half as many signals and no preemption. With the reduction in personnel, less is getting done with less. The Opticom system has been left to languish. Please do not allow or expand a system that will cause more delays to traffic and save only a few minutes, only improving a bus ride from 2.5 to 2.375 times longer than a car ride. Another study shows even less improvements. My experience is when drivers' perceptions are disrupted, they assume the signal is stuck or broke and tend to run a red light because they are impatient, and that can be deadly. Again, please do not do this, but if you choose to allow people mover to use traffic preemption devices, please put some restrictions on it. Require conditional priority. Changing just a few words in AM 184 may accomplish this. Should to will, explore to require, and at the end of the first bullet change without restriction to with restriction that conditional priority be provided at all locations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Osiander has a question, ma'am.
Sir, you sent one of the most intelligent and articulate emails that I've gotten in a long time.
Thank you.
I read it. I saw Mr. Flynn forward it into to Mr. Michaelis, as I did, and we got a response back, which I'm assuming you have not seen.
Yes, no, I haven't.
All right. Basically, the information we got back is they are planning to update those controllers. And I'm trying to paraphrase everything in the letter. We got quite a long letter back.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see that letter, but I can tell you that the new controllers, there's 3 of them will be installed this year, one at Old Seward, one at Cars in Muldoon, and one at Northern Lights in Muldoon. The state has not come to any conclusion about how they will pay the city $1.8 million to have the traffic signal section to do the installs on their traffic controllers and do it in a safe and efficient manner. And so they're anxious, but at the most they can hope for is 80 signals in the first year. This is a project changing out the controllers that will be years. 2 minimum. It took 4 years to install the Opticom at all the intersections in Anchorage, and I don't anticipate the traffic signals controller change-out is going to go any more efficiently. With the new controllers, I agree there's, with the real priority that they can get in the new controllers, basically all it does, it extends the greet time, allowing the bus to make the light. without skipping any left turns or side streets, allows pedestrian movements, and it only operates when they're behind schedule, resulting in really minimal impact. And that will be possible when the new controllers are installed. And this is another undertaking. Signal operations and maintenance are working with the city to install them. But what they're trying to do here is add 55 more buses. They're going to be preempting a whole lot more signals. And the way they are, it's impossible to not skip side streets.
I did get that from what you sent originally, but what I'm just responding to is...
interrupt.
No, they basically told us in this response letter that the plan is to bring them up, not only the, and you know the wording far better than I, not only the controllers, but the ones inside the buses. I will ask when public testimony is done about...
system,
Yeah, I will ask about the funding on that, but my understanding is that we've gotten a significant grant, but I will pursue that part.
Yeah, that funding is there, but my point is that I've already got, just using the equipment, I got $1.3 million of equipment out there that isn't getting maintained, and now you're going to be expanding that because of budget cuts 09 and 10.
Okay.
And we're, like I said, we're overwhelmed with work, and this is, we'd rather use the time to put in the new controllers than to, work on the Omnicom. If you can delay this a year, it would be more. If you could put restrictions on it, like I suggested, that would, make us feel better. But the bottom line is that once all the buses are driving around, if there's nobody on the crew to, signals get damaged, they get hit, cars run over things, that becomes our priority.
Okay. Do you work for the city?
Yeah, on traffic signals.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just here as an individual, though, because I've seen the problems of one of the original signals at Diamond and King. It's because, and I said this to the group last year, that I saw a real problem there. And within 2 months, they were having left turn traffic back up into the through lane, and it created a very dangerous situation, and they finally deleted that from the test intersections. But
I got that.
yeah, it's, like I said, if we can delay it or put conditions on it, I would appreciate that, or postpone it, and we'll come back.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and say no one. Public testimony is closed. What's wish of the body? We need a motion on this one. What, ma'am?
Second.
Okay. Discussion from assembly members. Ms. Osiander.
I was going to ask the administration about the funding and the maintenance on this, please.
Ron, you want to address that one?
Ron Thompson, Public Works Director for the municipality. In speaking with regard to the maintenance of these items, as always, items out there are always maintained. If we get a phone call, if we get a Opticon signal that's a problem, we're out there, we're fixing it. Are you out there every day driving around seeing if the Opticon is working or not? No, we have enough people out there, police, fire, they contact us and we get out there and fix those. As to the funding with regard to the controllers, we've been in contact with the state. The state has been working the funding. We'll be going through a memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement to make that funding work and be able to start installing these. So we're all in coordination with the state right now. It's just when we get there and when we finalize those documentations, we will have funding to start moving forward.
My understanding, you're not going to expand it until you get the new systems, right?
Expand.
To other buses.
I'd have to, that's correct.
Okay. That's my main question.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Honeman.
I guess that's perplexing part to me, too, is, I'm kind of inclined to actually have some sort of a framework to be more, I guess, to hold the feet to the fire to make sure this is done and done properly. It's like anything else we build, and we don't necessarily put anything budgeted in for operations and maintenance on it, and then it becomes a deferred problem down the road. And our,
Right.
do you believe we're adequately staffed to maintain the new equipment?
Well, we always have to work toward that and try to make sure that you balance the maintenance and the money. Typically, they're kind of two different systems, though. I don't know if everybody's understanding. The controller is a different system than Opticon. Does that make sense? So anyway, everybody in doing what we're doing is trying to work together to make sure that the maintenance done and is moved forward under the constraints and the systems that you have in operation. So at this point in time, I think there's always struggles with regard to timing and when things how in the long term it's handled, but we're working on efficiencies. We've brought Public Works back together as one entity to try to work with long-range planning, traffic, as well as PM&E and road design. All these things are in the works. We're working with the state of Alaska all the time to try to enhance better programs and long-term maintenance solutions, and not just take over maintenance that's not covered and not funded. So it's always in the works, and is there agreements that we have to try to make better? Absolutely. But for the most part, those are all being in discussion. We meet with the state monthly and go over these type of discussions. So.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
There are no other questions. Thanks, Ron. Any other comments from Assembly members? If not, please vote. That item is approved by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14F. Ordinance AO 2011-46, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code sections 8.40.030 and 8.40.040 regarding registration of alarms annually. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name for the record and spell your last name if you would, please. Hearing and saying no in public hearings closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. A lot of excitement on that, isn't there? Mr. Starr, sir.
I thought maybe the mover of the motion wanted to defend moving it. But I'm not defer to you. I'm okay with that. I'm not a fan of the annual fees, and even however slight they may be, they're agitating to those that have to comply with them. Either the municipality has to send out a bill at cost to remind people to pay it, or the homeowner has to go online somewhere and remember that every period they have to send in $25. And what I find challenging with that is then they're always raising the ire of, well, what do my taxes cover? What do I get for my $25? Chief, do you mind kind of coming up and telling me the administrative costs and annual registration of fire alarms, or of alarms in general, I guess? And I'll guess you a pointed question is that how much does your department spend on sort of keeping track who has an alarm system every year? Once they provide initial registration, I mean, do you have a lot invested in it?
Mr. Starr, through the chair, if I understand your question correctly, I think there's two parts to it. One is how much time do we spend doing it now, and we don't spend any time doing it, and that's the problem. It's on the honor system, and frankly, nobody complies. So the reason for the annual, or few people comply, the reason for the annual registration is people move. If we have part of the reason, half of the reason for the registration is to know who your contact people are. So if you go to a problem alarm in the middle of the night, it's going off, keeps going off, it's waking up neighbors, you got to call somebody, figure out who the owner is, get out there, shut it down, then we know who to call. And if we register it once and then never re-register it, when we call that number, it's not the owner anymore. They've sold. There's somebody else new there. Mm-hmm. So the annual fee is just so we can keep our files up to date, so that we know who to contact in the middle of the night and on weekends when we have problems with malfunctioning alarms. So that's the reason for doing it annually. The second part of the reason to do it all is so that when we have alarms that are problematic and they've been fined and fined and fined and fined and fined, eventually we can pull the permission to operate the alarm. So there's really two reasons to do the registration and one reason to do it annually. And the $25 is just our estimate of what it would cost for us to manage the system.
Yeah, I don't mind. Pragmatically, how will you do it then? Will you send them a bill based on record keeping, or you just, how do you get the word out that they're supposed to do it in the first place? And then annually, how do you remind them to keep sending their money in?
I don't know that I've got the answer for you on that. I know that our IT person and the captain who's in charge of that division have worked out a system. I know that in the beginning it's going to be a lot of education, and as you see in here, we're going to cut everybody some slack because, frankly, not everybody's going to get the word. And so the first time we go, if it's not registered there, we'll be talking to the owner and give them a piece of paper and encouraging them to comply. I think it's going to take us a while to get up on step. What I can't tell you off the top of my head is whether or not we have a plan to proactively mail something out to them, but I think it's something we can sure look at. And maybe it is part of the system they've designed. I can't say standing here tonight.
The difference between a monitored alarm, somebody that has their dialer go to Guardian Security and then Guardian calls the homeowner or something like that, is there a difference between a monitored system and one that just has a audible bell that's tripped by motion and agitates the neighbor's dogs? I would think so. And so now you've got a guy that's monitored paying his $25 or $39 to monitor with Guardian, who kind of calls him at home or says, hey, your alarm's going off, fix it. And then the other guy that doesn't have that monitoring service. Is there a distinction between the two?
Yes, there is. And if everybody that had an alarm had a local monitoring company, and if you wanted to require that, if we wanted to write that in the ordinance, then we might not have to have a registration situation because we would call Guardian. Guardian knows who their client is, and we'd work through Guardian. Sadly, that's not the case. I mean, I'm not making a pitch for Guardian, but there are a lot of alarms that aren't monitored by anybody. They're audible. Or they're inaudible, but technology now lets people monitor themselves off-site, but there's no company that you can talk to find those people if they're not there. And then a lot of folks have monitors or alarms that are monitored by companies outside of the state and in some cases outside of the country. So it's difficult sometimes to track down owners when you got a problem and neighbors are awake and can't sleep, or you got repeat calls for service. The cops keep going back and back to back all night long. So
there's just as many false alarm agitations and costs to the city based on monitored alarms than there would be perhaps just the audible that's out there.
Certainly, and I think the audibles are maybe even more prone than the ones that are monitored, particularly by the local companies. The local companies have a vested interest to keep their clients happy and out of trouble.
Okay, thank you for coming up.
Sure, you bet.
Mr. Honeman. Yeah, Mr. Starr beat me a little to the edge of the questions or comments, but basically the Chief answered adequately, I think, pretty much the concerns. I will just add that I think this is a fairly nominal fee. I think you could build this in several ways, and I think just offer some suggestions both to this body and to this administration and the Chief. Education, information, pretty much key. We all get typical utility bills, and we have some control over perhaps distribution of that. Also, at all the places that alarm companies are we know of, and both in town and those that aren't, maybe a letter from the Chief's office explaining that he changed the ordinance and the fee to pass that on to their consumers as they have clients as they come in, and obviously anywhere that they're sold, like even including like Costco and Sam's, places like that, not just your typical alarm companies, but realistically we get a lot of false alarm calls throughout the course of the year, and oftentimes they're chasing down who the owners are, particularly the ones that aren't registered through an alarm company, and I think it's a fairly small fee to do it, but I will just use caution and say that I'm not a big fan of, 25 now and 50 next year and 75, so just, personally look at it as a cost of doing business administratively, so I think it's adequate, and I urge support.
Thank you. There are no other comments. Thank you, Chief. Please vote. That was approved by the body with one no vote. Next item in front of us, is item 14G, ordinance AO 2011-47, an ordinance authorizing acquisition of real property at Arctic Boulevard and 30th Avenue for Municipal Light and Power MLMP for a purchase price not to exceed $3,500,000 and designation of management authority to MLMP. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
It's moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Mr. Flynn.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess this one has me a little bit troubled. I inquired as to what the MLNP board, before it lost a third of its membership, how they felt about this, and they managed a bare majority of 5 to approve this purchase. My understanding is we're offering a price that's very likely above market value, and I'm struggling with burdening ratepayers with that cost. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston.
Yes, Mr. Flynn kind of hit a point that I was concerned about, and I'm just wondering, I have a question. When you go to the RCA, and as far as your rate structure, how does this building fit in, since it is, it's about $1 million over assessed value? Or how does this property, what's going to happen there? What's the...
Through the chair, Ms. Johnson, this particular piece of property is part of the $115 million project that we have sharing, power sharing out of a plant out of South Anchorage. We looked at every bit of piece of property through a real estate division for 4 or 5 years to find this piece, settled on this one because given the timing that we have and the cost of all the other properties that we looked at, this was by far the best that we could move on. Mrs. Starn and her family trust really is not interested in selling it. They wanted to lease it to us. The cost was going to be approaching $11 million to do that over time with the adjustment provisions that the trust wanted us to have. So I think that this will not be questioned by the RCA, given the overall piece of what we're doing and the backup that we have of all the efforts that the city had to find pieces of property that would fit our need and our timing.
Ms. Johnston, anything else, ma'am? Okay. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make one really quick comment, and that is basically to thank the administration and MLMP for the work session that we had a couple of weeks ago, because it outlined all the properties that you looked at, and during that work session, you explained each piece of property, and you also advised us, I believe at that work session, which what your choice was and why. And so I'm happy to take the opportunity this evening and approve this so you can move on. And I'm also glad it's in my district. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on some of the topics at the work session, in the fact that every piece of property that was looked at was overpriced, given consideration for what you were looking for. I mean, there was none of those that were at appraised value. There's no question about that. The thing that particularly struck me about this was, I go back to our little deal at Tudor Road where we had to run some electrical underground that had an extra $500,000 in cost. And my understanding is with this location, we're at no risk of any of that type of expense, because we're not going to have to go under any roads or anything. It's truly the best located, the easy access. Everything seemed very positive to me in the presentation in regards to this particular piece of property.
Through the chair, Mr. Hall, we try to be as efficient in spending our money as saving money and buying and generating power.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Honeman.
Just one real quick question to clarify. My understanding is this is the property that has a building that's not, the MLP does not intend to maintain, right? Actually, some of the costs are going to be defrayed by the sale of the building afterwards?
Through the chair, Mr. Army, yes, that is the plan, to basically put the building back on the market after we do the construction. We actually need the parking lot as a lay-down area and probably the building as a construction maintenance area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. There are no other questions. There's nobody else in the queue. Please vote. The vote was 9-2. That item was approved. Next item in front of us is item 14H, Resolution Air 2011-83, resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $567,748
Waive reading.
in cash pool. This is continuing hazardous fuels reduction efforts and mitigate wildfire hazards. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Starr, sir.
Chief Hall, I have a couple questions about this, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's
But come here anyway.
There's $210,000 worth of professional services, or basically one-time expenses, and I believe they're the outside agencies. Are they to your wood chippers or the folks that actually control the burns, or what are we spending $210,000 for out of department?
Through the chair, Mr. Starr, you're not putting me on the spot. This is Sue Rodman, she's our forester.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief. Mr. Starr, that money will go to, yes, for contract crews, for example, like the Division of Forestry has been working for us, or other mechanized crews. Also for other professional services that we hire out, like we do airtime on the television and radio stations. That would be part of that. The whole gamut of fire rights education, and then doing the cost share program, that's not part of the professional services aspect of it, but then, like woodlots are professional services because we have contractors come in. So,
all right.
Yeah.
I've asked you this before. There is no opportunity to get a helicopter in coverage under a program such as this to expand it or solicit the state for matching funds. I don't like the answer that the helicopter is located in Palmer, and that's the answer that I have to. You've been to my meetings in my community up Valley, and those guys are really prone to having something get away from them. I know you're doing great. The mitigation programs and the seasonal clearing is awesome, but we get a dry year. What are the odds of getting a helicopter tied into a program such as this, or somewhere in the department?
Well, with this money, I don't think we have enough money to do that. However, I have been talking with the administration on some other avenues of possibly getting a helicopter.
Okay. Well, if you got creative funding sources, I mean, these are always ones that you can go to other folks and say, help us contribute, and or entice Palmer to base it our area for a while.
And actually, during particular weather, they will, if we ask, and they can.
All right. Well, I just appreciate the sensitivity, and those are there. It's a great program. I just kind of urge support of that. Thanks for
Yes, sir.
your answer.
Pardon? Oh, go ahead.
Just as a point of reference, a large portion of this money isn't available for that because it's used to match another one of the grants that we got in 2008. So it's already committed.
Thank you very much for testifying. Any other questions from assembly members in debate? If not, please vote. It is approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14I. Resolution Air 2011-84, resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $247,021 from State of Alaska Department of Transportation appropriating for, this is impaired driving enforcement. Public testimony is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward and state your name clearly for the record. Hearing say no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Please vote. Unanimous. That was approved by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14J, Resolution Air 2011-85, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $148,537 to the supplemental grant from U.S. Department of U.S. Environmental Protection Agencies. This is air quality program. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Anyone at all? Hearing say no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve. Second. Somebody else already had it.
Mr. Starr, sir.
It's sort of topical to this, but I keep getting an email from the guy that wants to know when the IM program is going away. Has anybody answered him? What did we tell him?
I talked to the mayor. He and I discussed this on Monday. We're waiting for Region 10 to give us permission to get rid of it. That's the EPA. And they're on their own schedule. As they told me over the phone, we may need another study. And when I was back there talking to both our senators and our Congressman Young, I got a pledge to cut their funds off, to not give them any more money to do a study. Just do what they need to do and end the program. Mr. Mayor?
You said it very well, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's one of these programs that the mayor's talked about. Once you get started in it, you're locked into it. You have to get their permission to get rid of it, even if it serves no purpose. Please vote. Yes, there's a lot of people that are coming up for renewal on their IM that would like to have it gone now. Me too. You did what? He had his test today. That was approved unanimously by the body. So you're not polluting our air, huh? Good. You're like most of the residents of this town. Item 14K, Resolution Air 2011-86, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $495,000 as the grant from State of Alaska. This is a paratransit interactive voice response system, IVRS, and mobile data terminal, MTD, Rangers. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's wish of the body? Moved and seconded. Any discussion from assembly members? If not, please vote. That item was approved by the body.
Debbie, should we approve this one?
We could take hours on this one, Bill.
I'll let you make the motion.
Maybe we should just vote yes then if he's not going to talk. Item 14L, Resolution Air 2011-87, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $3,316,948 from Public Works Department. This is Subursa Capital Improvement Program Fund 419. Public testimony is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Second. See, you did open your mouth. Any discussion from assembly members?
Happy to support this.
Please vote. That was approved unanimously by the body. Next item refers to item 14M, Resolution Air 2011-88, a resolution appropriating $985,963 contribution from the Public Works Department. This is major municipal facility upgrades and repairs. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Discussion from assembly members. Please vote. That item is approved by the body. Next item in front is item 14, and resolution number 2011-89, a resolution appropriating $340,000 contribution list from the Public Works Department. This is future roof repairs at the George M. Sullivan Arena, Anchorage Museum, at Rasmussen Center, and the ZJ Lusac Library. Got going too fast. Public testimony is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record. Hearing and saying no one, public testimony is closed. What's wish the body?
Move to approve.
Mr. Honeman.
I just want to point out that I do remember going to the arena this year for some hockey games, and quite a bit of buckets around, so I really think this is very urgent. We need to address the maintenance instead of deferring it. Thank you. Urge support.
Thank you. Any other assembly discussion? If not, please vote. That was approved unanimously by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14-0. Item 14-0 is resolution number 2011-95, a resolution of municipality bankers appropriating a transfer responsibilities agreement, TORA, of $232,153 from State of Alaska. This is Anchorage Metropolitan Area Transportation Solutions, AMATS, arterial roadway dust control. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vacalis, the usual question. Does this TORA does in fact TORA costs?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. Urge approval.
Okay, any other assembly discussion? If not, please vote. The item is approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14P, resolution number 2011-97, a resolution appropriating $150,000 of Alaska Center for the Performing Arts. This is facility improvements at ACPA. Public testimony is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. You've been waiting all this night. You should testify.
Thank you, though.
Okay. Sometimes saying no is a better option. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from assembly members. Mr. Honeman.
Mr. Chairman, I went through recently at the Performing Arts Center, and I know a lot of us did. Is this the area, maybe somebody asked, the one with the obsolete parts at the bottom of the decking that goes up and down? I think that was the one that was really sorely in need of repair and replacement. Okay, that's it.
Needs it.
One and the same.
Please vote.
Bill, how you vote?
Aha! I can't believe that. Tactical punching error. That's approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14Q, resolution number 2011-98, a resolution appropriating $400,000 of Egan Center Capital Reserve Account revenues. This is for facility improvements at the William A. Egan Civic and Convention Center. Public testimony is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? But moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Please vote. Mr. Hall, Ms. Jackson, there. That voting was unanimous. That item is approved. That completes our agenda. We're now down to special orders. There's none I know of. Unfinished
Mr.
agenda.
Chairman.
There is none. What?
I'd like to move reconsideration.
Which one, sir?
Item 14A, I'd like to move reconsideration on AO 2011-48.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moving to second for reconsideration. Mr. Starr?
Yeah, I'd actually like to reconsider the postponement date. I'd like to move that up to the 19th. And there's some interest by the parties. The time is of the essence, and I think there's some opportunity for us to wrap it up in a week.
Okay. 14A.
Also unburdens our agenda on the 26th.
Okay.
To clarify for the clerk, Mr. Chairman, that this motion would be to reconsider the
Action previous. Then we're going to have to move the date if you move it, but it's a two-step process.
I understand.
We
That's
first
fine.
have to agree to reconsider it.
That's my intention.
Okay? Who was the second on reconsideration? That was Honeman.
Paul Hoon. Sorry. It wasn't on the board earlier, sorry.
Let me bring it up.
Got it.
Please vote. A yes will reconsider, and a no will not. Item is reconsidered by the body. What was 8-3? It's in front of us again. Bill?
Yeah, I'd like to move to change the extension on the reconsideration to the 19th.
Second.
In discussion from assembly members. Mr. Wheeler?
Confirming 19th of May, correct?
No, April.
No, April.
Okay.
Next week.
Our next meeting. Mr. Can somebody bring in Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Wheeler, you're wanted.
Mr. Wheeler, I've taken up the liberty to extend reconsideration on an item for an item previously voted on by the Assembly.
We moved reconsideration successfully, Mr. Wheeler. Now he wants to change the motion to be heard on the date of 4/19/11, next week. This is on item 14A that we dealt with earlier.
Be carried to the April 19th agenda as old business.
So you're moving for reconsideration?
Already did.
He's already done reconsideration, was approved.
Were you on the prevailing side on the original vote?
Night of the meeting, we wouldn't have to, would it?
Ma'am?
Mr. Wheeler, I think that the Assembly has separate rules for reconsideration, and we don't have to have the prevailing side, if I remember correctly, but I don't have it in front of me. I know Roberts does require that, but I thought,
I think we have our own rules.
I may be wrong, though, I
don't know.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Wheeler?
Just a minute, Mr. Chairman.
Sir?
I was just going to make a comment. Robert's Rules of Order, the new edition, does not require the reconsideration by someone from the prevailing side. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The clerk withdrew her objection. Dennis? I just want to make sure Dennis is happy with it.
A motion to reconsider a vote may be made only by a member who voted with the prevailing side and seconded by any other member of the Assembly. This is 23080 subsection G.
What are you reading out of? Robert's Rules of Order or what?
No, sir, municipal code.
Okay. You were on the prevailing side, were you? Bill, were you on the prevailing side?
I voted against the delay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm happy to move to reconsider.
Second.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, we already did that. What do I need to do? Thank you.
Public hearing
Mr.
date.
Chairman, I'd like to move to change the public hearing date to April 19th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chris? This is under old business. This doesn't matter. No.
The issue with the other ones were that they were being, the public hearing was being set. They were the 9th.
They were introduced, being
and that's
introduced
why
tonight.
I got confused. But
Any discussion from Assembly members? Please vote. Yes, we'll bring this up on the 19th. No, we'll not. This item will be in front of us on the 19th. Next item in business in front of us is special orders. There are none. Unfinished agenda. There is none. Audience participation. Is there anybody that wishes to address the Assembly on any item? Billy Ray Powers, welcome.
I mean, is this the time when we discuss new business?
That you can discuss anything you want for 3 minutes.
That's very good. Billy Ray Powers.
Within reason.
Powers. First off, I want to thank this body for that vote on those horses. I am the privileged owner and keeper of heavy draft horses and quarter horses, and I say privileged because I don't deserve the privilege that I have. These are kind, beautiful creatures, and they bring a grounding and a civility to our community that a lot of people don't understand, so I want to thank you for that unanimous vote. The second thing I want to talk about is the wide disparity in the quality of education in this town between affluent communities, areas, and kind of the lowlanders. I'm a lowlander. You know, when we voted to give the tax exemption to our widows of our fallen military people, I'm happy for every one of these classes that have this $150,000 exemption. I was just thinking it would be nice to extend that $150,000 exemption to families who are in areas where they are not allowed to send their children to a school that is getting it done in their neighborhood. Just a thought. Maybe somebody, Debbie, 25 years ago when I was really studying this, my littlest kids were coming in, you were the go-to person. You know what I'm talking about. The affluent communities really do get it done in the education department. The others don't. I feel that if you live here, you pay taxes, you should be able to send your child to your neighborhood school and expect a first-class education. Just a thought. Thank you.
Ms. Osander, a question.
One of the provisions of No Child Left Behind is if your school does not meet adequately yearly progress for 3 years in a row, the school district will bus them to a different school.
I understand, and that is somewhat a consolation, but you should be able to send your child to your local school and expect, and I mean, in Alaska, I think we should expect the finest education on the planet, but it's not happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else wants to talk to? Come on, you don't need to raise your hand. Come on down.
All right.
How you doing, Ron?
Hey, pretty good. I only got 3 minutes. I was shooting for 3 years. I'm weighing heavy on the absentee votes coming in, so it's still not out. On this homeless camp deal, I think you're missing the boat. That personal property you have as a personal property appraiser can be appraised for $50. Be purchased for that. You have professional appraisers with your auction contract. So if the police gather it up, take a look at it, it's worth $50. You put $50 in the bank. Don't have the police officers waste your time inventorying this, whatnot. It's a big waste of money. If they file a claim, give them the $50, fine them $200 for the trespassing, take the $50 back, and they still owe the city $150. So it's simple economics. That was a big mistake. And since I've listened to all, if it was a cow pasture, it would have been a lot of Bologna, but it was about horses. That issue there is going to come back to haunt you. That neighbor's an attorney, and she's going to come back and really file suit. And that conditional use on PLI land That's going to come back to haunt you because of the shelter and other zoning issues that you had with conditional uses. You set a very bad precedent there. And Mr. Wheeler's going to stay very busy over there. He's a busy little rabbit. And the ACLU getting $93,500, that's sick, because I witnessed the suffering that took place in the woods in those camps, not giving the authority to the police to take them down. And it's shameful of this city to respect personal property rights when the domestic violence and the violence in general that took place in those camps was absolutely shameful. It was nowhere near a humanitarian mission whatsoever. So, hey, is my 3 minutes up, or Dick?
No.
Okay. And last but not least, I thought during the campaign, I've heard of pandering, and I thought Sarah Palin had the basic hit on that, but I have a new image of, if you would have came to my victory party, the other candidates filling those hot air balloons that were provided. I thought, hey, you missed a good time. You should have been there. Are there any questions? Mr. Wheeler, honors to you. And Dan, for not endorsing me, an eternal vendetta. Anything else? You guys got any questions? I know, because your minds are already made up. But hey, it was a good time. I really appreciated what occurred the last couple of months, and we kept everyone hopefully honest, except for you who took that union money.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to testify? Anyone at all? Hearing seen no one, we're done with that portion. We're now down to assembly comments. Harriet? Chris?
Good night.
Elvie?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jennifer?
I just want to say thank you to the Maintenance and Operations Department. Our son had a backup by his house as far as the drain system, and they were there within 5 minutes, and they called about a half hour later to see if everything was all right. So I just wanted to say thank you.
It's great. Pat? Bill? Ernie? Paul?
Touch and go.
Mike?
No, I want to echo what Ms. Johnston said. I got a flurry of constituent calls about a week and a half ago, and Maintenance and Operations was on it immediately. They've done a fantastic job.
Debbie?
Another happy birthday to Mike.
Okay, we're down to executive session. There is not. How about item 20? Let's adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second, we're adjourned.